What if the history we thought we knew is only the surface of a far deeper, hidden story? Across deserts, mountains, and forgotten ruins, archaeologists are uncovering artifacts that defy explanation, structures that challenge our understanding of ancient engineering, tools that hint at knowledge long lost, and symbols that whisper of civilizations we barely comprehend. These discoveries force us to question everything we believe about humanity's past. Tonight, we journey beyond the textbooks into the shadows of time itself to explore mysteries that may rewrite history. Are you ready to see what lies beneath? Perperikon rises from the rugged hills of the eastern Rhodope Mountains like a silent sentinel, its stone terraces etched into the slopes by hands long vanished from history. The air here is thin, scented with wild thyme and the faint dust of centuries, carrying a quiet weight that seems almost tangible. As the morning sun spills across the jagged ruins, shadows stretch over monumental stairways, megalithic walls, and worn rock altars, each surface carved with the marks of ritual, labor, and perhaps devotion. Walking through these terraces, it is easy to imagine the countless generations who lived, worshipped, and vanished here, leaving behind only stone and silence. Archaeologists date Perperikon's earliest occupation to the Neolithic period, around 5000 BCE, though most visible structures belong to the late Bronze Age and Iron Age. It is widely believed that the site functioned as a sanctuary, a citadel, and perhaps even a royal residence at different points in time. Excavations have revealed fragments of temples, massive stone blocks aligned with remarkable precision, and an intricate network of stairways and chambers that suggest a sophisticated understanding of urban planning. Artifacts, pottery, jewelry, and inscriptions hint at a community that was both highly organized and deeply spiritual. Yet, Perperikon does not yield its secrets easily. Among the verifiable remains lie features that resist straightforward explanation. There are enormous boulders, carved and arranged in ways that seem almost ritualistic, yet their exact purpose remains elusive. Some of the rock-cut chambers and underground passages appear to extend beyond known excavation areas, suggesting hidden spaces that may hold further evidence of ancient life. And then there are the inscriptions, some resembling Thracian script, others so weathered or abstract that their meaning remains a matter of debate. Could these marks be religious, administrative, or something else entirely? Messages from a past we can only partially understand? Beyond the mainstream interpretations, scholars and enthusiasts have speculated on more enigmatic possibilities. Some point to the alignment of certain terraces and altars with celestial events, proposing that Perperikon may have functioned as an astronomical observatory. Others suggest links to the legendary Oracle of Dionysus, long associated with the region, hinting that the complex was not just a place of stone and ritual, but a spiritual gateway where prophecy and ritual intertwined. Even the sheer scale of some of the megalithic constructions raises questions. Were they purely functional, symbolic, or did they hold meanings now lost to time? Despite decades of research, each excavation seems to raise as many questions as it answers. Who exactly built Perperikon, and why did they select this rocky outcrop as the focus of their lives and devotion? What rituals were performed in its temples and rock-cut sanctuaries? And perhaps most intriguingly, what lies hidden beneath layers of sediment and rubble, waiting for someone to uncover it? Every discovery, every broken pot, carved stone, or fragment of wall serves as both evidence and enigma, offering a tangible connection to the past, while also reminding us of how much we have yet to understand. As the sun dips behind the mountains, casting the terraces in deep shadow, it is impossible not to feel a sense of reverence and curiosity. Perperikon is more than a site of stones and artifacts. It is a landscape of questions, a living testament to human ambition, belief, and mystery. Even as modern researchers map its terraces and document its relics, the complex continues to guard its secrets, challenging each new generation to look deeper. And perhaps in the quiet wind that sweeps over its ridges, there is a whisper of stories still untold, waiting for someone patient enough to listen. As we leave the sun-swept terraces of Perperikon behind, our journey takes us to another realm of ancient mystery, carved not in towering walls, but in the very heart of the earth itself. Nestled within the rugged hills and limestone cliffs of Sardinia lie the Domus de Janas, or House of the Fairies, a labyrinth of subterranean tombs whose silent corridors have witnessed the passage of thousands of years. From the outside, the entrances are modest, small openings, often no more than a doorway etched into the rock, surrounded by the wild scrub and jagged outcrops of the Sardinian landscape. But within, the spaces expand, revealing a hidden world of chambers, carvings, and passageways that challenge any modern attempt at replication. These rock-cut tombs date back to the late Neolithic period, between 3,400 and 2,700 BCE, crafted by the pre-Nuragic peoples of the island. Archaeologists have documented thousands of these structures across Sardinia, with some tombs consisting of a single chamber, while others form complex networks of multiple rooms, connected by narrow corridors and carved stairways. The walls of many tombs are intricately adorned with motifs that include spirals, concentric circles, symbolic representations of tools, and occasionally depictions of animals. These motifs hint at a culture that understood not only the practicalities of death and burial, but also the symbolism and ritual that surrounded it. Yet, as with Perperikon, the more we study the Domus de Janas, the more questions arise. How did these ancient builders manage to carve such precise chambers entirely by hand, using only stone and bone tools, without the scaffolding or machinery that modern construction relies upon? The ceilings are often flat and meticulously leveled, the walls perfectly smooth, and some chambers are arranged with a geometric sophistication that seems to anticipate architectural principles that would not be formally recognized for millennia. Could these builders have possessed knowledge of structural engineering and spatial design that has since been lost? Inside the tombs, the air is cool and still, carrying a faint scent of earth and limestone dust. Shadows cling to the corners, and every carved symbol seems to pulse with a quiet significance, as if the walls themselves are whispering fragments of a forgotten story. In some chambers, archaeologists have discovered skeletal remains carefully arranged, accompanied by pottery, beads, and tools, suggesting complex funerary rituals. Yet the choice of burial placement, deep underground, often in labyrinthine sequences, remains enigmatic. Was it purely practical, designed to protect the dead from predators and the elements? Or was it ceremonial, a journey into the underworld designed to guide the spirits beyond? Speculative theories abound, and while none are confirmed, they cannot be easily dismissed. Some researchers suggest that the Domus de Janas may have functioned not only as burial sites, but also as centers of ritual and spiritual practice, where initiates or shamans performed ceremonies to commune with the dead. Others note alignments of certain tomb entrances with celestial events, the solstices or the rising of particular stars, hinting at a possible astronomical awareness embedded within the architecture. Could these subterranean chambers have served as observatories of the heavens, their symbolic carvings echoing cosmic patterns? The artistry itself is perplexing. Some carvings exhibit a degree of precision that seems almost impossible with the tools believed to have been available. Smooth surfaces, perfectly symmetrical motifs, and complex geometric arrangements appear in tombs that are difficult to access, often deep within cliffsides or under layers of rock and soil. How did these people visualize, plan, and execute such work in complete darkness, using only the faint light of oil lamps or torches? And why did they choose to expend such effort for structures that would never be seen again by the living, hidden away in silence? As we move through these ancient corridors, it is impossible not to feel a sense of intimacy and awe. The Domus de Janas are not grand monuments designed to impress from afar. They are private, hidden, and deliberate, inviting us to contemplate the lives, beliefs, and skills of people who lived more than 5 millennia ago. Every chamber, every carving, every carefully positioned burial is both evidence of human ingenuity and a reminder of how much we do not understand. Even after decades of archaeological study, many aspects of these tombs remain unresolved. Were the carvings purely decorative, symbolic, or functional in ways we cannot yet comprehend? Did the builders intend the tombs to serve as more than resting places for the dead, perhaps as sanctuaries of ritual or repositories of secret knowledge? And most intriguingly, are there chambers, passages, or inscriptions still buried beneath the surface, waiting to reveal insights that could challenge our understanding of Neolithic Europe? In the quiet depth of the tombs, one senses the weight of time itself, pressing against the walls and corridors like a slow, measured heartbeat. The Domus de Janas, much like Perperikon before them, are a testament to human ambition, belief, and mystery, an enduring enigma carved in stone and shadow. And as we emerge once more into the light of Sardinia's hills, we are left with questions that have no easy answers, yet a profound awareness. The past is far stranger and more intricate than we often dare to imagine. As we leave the quiet stone corridors of Sardinia behind, our journey now takes us across continents to the rugged landscapes of India, where another ancient enigma rises from the earth. In the hills surrounding the historic city of Rajgir, in the state of Bihar, immense stone walls stretch across the ridges like silent sentinels, their presence both imposing and mysterious. Known as the Cyclopean walls of Rajgir, these structures wind over rocky terrain in curves and angles that follow the contours of the hills, forming a defensive network that seems almost inseparable from the landscape itself. Standing before them, one cannot help but feel the weight of centuries pressing down, a silent reminder of the civilizations that shaped them, and of the secrets they still hold. The term Cyclopean is borrowed from classical architecture, referring to constructions made of massive, irregular boulders fitted together without the use of mortar. At Rajgir, these walls are composed of enormous stones, some weighing several tons, meticulously arranged to form fortifications that have withstood the ravages of time, weather, and human activity. Archaeologists date the site to the 6th to 5th century BCE, associating it with the ancient kingdom of Magadha, a cradle of early Indian civilization and a center of political and religious development. Historical records suggest that these walls served as fortifications for the city, protecting it from invaders and marking the domain of rulers who sought to project power through both architecture and strategy. Yet, the more one examines these walls, the more questions emerge. The sheer size of the stones, some of which would require sophisticated engineering to move even today, challenges our understanding of ancient construction methods. How were these massive boulders transported across uneven, hilly terrain without the aid of modern machinery? How did the builders ensure stability, precise alignment, and interlocking of stones to withstand centuries of erosion and seismic activity? Unlike Perperikon's terraces or the Domus de Janas tombs, these walls are not carved from a single rock formation. They were assembled, block by block, in a way that seems almost impossible to replicate with the tools available at the time. The layout itself raises further intrigue. The walls follow a seemingly organic pattern, hugging ridgelines, encircling valleys, and climbing steep slopes with a fluidity that suggests both strategic design and an intimate understanding of the terrain. Some scholars propose that the builders were not only concerned with defense, but also with symbolism, perhaps creating a spatial narrative that reflected political authority, spiritual cosmology, or an understanding of the natural world. Could the alignment of certain sections with prominent hills, rivers, or celestial events have held significance beyond the practical? Were these walls mere fortifications, or were they also monumental statements of knowledge and intent, encoding meaning in stone that we are only beginning to glimpse? As we walk along the base of the walls, the texture of the stone is rough and cold under the fingers. Lichen and moss have softened the edges, yet the massive boulders still convey a sense of enduring power. Some sections display irregular gaps, suggesting repairs, collapses, or perhaps ancient construction techniques that remain opaque to modern study. And within the walls, small caves and hidden recesses hint at spaces used for shelter, storage, or ritual. Details lost to time, but captured faintly in the contours of the stones. How much of the story lies hidden in these spaces, waiting for careful excavation, observation, or perhaps an entirely new approach to understanding? Speculative interpretations abound, as is often the case with structures that defy easy explanation. Some researchers suggest that the walls were part of a larger, regional network of fortified sites, reflecting a civilization that possessed knowledge of logistics, hydraulics, and engineering far beyond what is commonly acknowledged for the period. Others point to their resilience and monumental scale as evidence of social organization capable of mobilizing and directing large labor forces with precision. There are even fringe theories, invoking lost technologies or forgotten knowledge, questioning whether ancient builders had methods of moving and positioning massive stones that we have yet to rediscover. The beauty of these walls lies in their silence. They tell us what they are, but never fully how they were made, nor why every choice was taken. As with our previous stops, the Cyclopean walls of Rajgir invite a blend of awe and humility. These are not structures built for decoration, nor mere curiosities. They are practical, monumental, and enduring, yet they also retain an almost mystical quality. Standing here, one can imagine the city below, the bustle of markets, the rituals of the temples, the strategizing of rulers, and yet the walls themselves dominate the experience, a reminder that human ambition can leave traces that outlast memory, language, and even history itself. Despite decades of study, much remains unresolved. Were these walls purely defensive, or did they serve additional ceremonial or symbolic purposes? How exactly were the builders able to move stones of such enormous weight across rugged hills without mechanized assistance? And, perhaps most intriguingly, are there sections of the walls, foundations, or chambers that remain hidden beneath centuries of sediment and vegetation, waiting to reveal secrets that could transform our understanding of ancient South Asia? As the sun casts long shadows across the ridges, the walls seem to ripple with silent questions, whispering across time to those who listen closely. Like Perperikon and the Domus de Janas, Rajgir reminds us that the past is not merely a record of what humans accomplished, but a puzzle of ingenuity, mystery, and enduring curiosity. Each stone is both a testament and a challenge, asking us to consider the depths of knowledge, skill, and intention that have shaped our world, and to wonder what might still lie hidden just beyond reach, waiting to be discovered. From the sun-baked ridges of India, our journey now takes us northward, across oceans and millennia, to the wind-swept coastline of Orkney, off the northern tip of Scotland. Here, perched atop a gentle rise overlooking the North Sea, stands the Broch of Gurness, a structure both imposing and enigmatic, its circular stone walls blending seamlessly with the rugged, heather-covered landscape. From a distance, it might appear as little more than a weathered ruin, a relic of a forgotten age. But as we approach, the scale, precision, and intricacy of the construction begin to reveal themselves. This is a place where the past refuses to be simple, where every stone seems to carry the weight of centuries of human ingenuity, mystery, and purpose. The Broch of Gurness is one of the most remarkable examples of the Iron Age brochs scattered across Scotland, dating from roughly 500 BCE to 200 CE. Its central tower, circular and hollow, rises from a thick stone foundation surrounded by a complex of ancillary buildings, courtyards, and defensive ditches. Excavations have uncovered the remains of homes, hearths, storage pits, and communal spaces, suggesting that the broch functioned as more than a solitary fortification. It was a hub of daily life, a place where families lived, craftsmen worked, and communities gathered. Yet it was also designed to impress, to intimidate, and perhaps to communicate power across the windswept landscape. What strikes archaeologists and visitors alike is the scale and sophistication of the construction. The broch's walls are exceptionally thick, up to 5 meters at the base, and built with carefully selected dry stone masonry. Despite the lack of mortar, the stones fit together with such precision that the structure has withstood centuries of relentless storms, frost, and erosion. Spiral stairways wind upward within the walls, and small chambers are cleverly incorporated into the thickness of the stone, suggesting not only a keen understanding of architecture, but also of spatial engineering. How, one wonders, did Iron Age builders achieve such precision using simple tools? How did they move and position stones weighing several tons with such care? These questions echo across the broch like the wind sweeping over Orkney's cliffs. Beyond its engineering, the Broch of Gurness invites speculation about its purpose. Mainstream explanations suggest a defensive role, a refuge against raiders, and a statement of territorial authority. Its position atop a rise overlooking fertile land and the sea would have allowed its inhabitants to survey the surrounding area, protecting crops, livestock, and trade routes. Yet, the structure is more than a fort. Its intricate interior design and integration with surrounding buildings hint at a complexity that is difficult to fully understand. Some scholars suggest that brochs functioned as centers of social and ceremonial life, places where community, ritual, and defense intertwined. Were the walls designed solely to repel invaders, or did they also embody symbolic or spiritual significance, signaling identity, status, or cosmological awareness? Inside the broch, the atmosphere is almost tangible. Narrow passageways lead from one chamber to another, shadows clinging to the stone like living memory. Hearths once glowed here, filling the circular space with warmth and smoke, while outside, sheep grazed and waves crashed against distant cliffs. Archaeologists have uncovered fragments of pottery, tools, and personal items, hinting at daily life, yet the choices behind the broch's design remain elusive. The staircase spirals, the hidden chambers, the precise angles of wall construction, all of these suggest a level of planning and technical knowledge that is difficult to reconcile with what we assume about Iron Age technology. Could the builders have possessed skills, techniques, or knowledge now lost to us? Were certain aspects of construction deliberately encoded to convey meaning, to protect secrets, or to manipulate space and experience in ways we cannot fully grasp today? Speculation naturally arises, as it does with other enigmatic sites we have explored. Some researchers propose that brochs, including Gurness, may have served as astronomical markers or seasonal observatories, aligning with solar or lunar events, or echoing a larger pattern of ritualized architecture across the British Isles. Others suggest that brochs symbolized a sophisticated understanding of defense and community organization, a feat of social engineering as much as construction. And still, there are questions about the scale of labor required. How did small communities manage to quarry, transport, and assemble such enormous stones, especially in regions isolated by sea and rough terrain? Did brochs represent centralized authority capable of coordinating massive workforce projects, or were they the result of smaller, highly skilled teams working over generations? As we walk through the ruins, the wind brushing over the cliffs and the faint call of seabirds echoing across the bay, it becomes clear that the Broch of Gurness, like Perperikon, the Domus de Janas, and Rajgir, is a structure that communicates both human mastery and enduring mystery. Every stone, every chamber, every surviving fragment is evidence of ingenuity, but also a reminder of what has been lost. The past speaks here in the silence of walls, in the geometry of staircases, and in the persistence of a structure that has survived millennia, yet refuses to reveal all of its secrets. Even after extensive study, much about the Broch of Gurness remains unresolved. Why was it built with such precision and complexity when simpler fortifications might have sufficed? What social, cultural, or spiritual knowledge influenced its design? And what details, hidden beneath collapsed stones or eroded by time, might still lie buried, awaiting discovery? In Gurness, as in the other sites we have explored, the more we learn, the more profound the questions become. Standing atop the rise, gazing out at the horizon where land meets sea, one cannot help but feel a deep connection to those who labored here, whose knowledge and vision crafted a structure both practical and enigmatic. The Broch of Gurness challenges our assumptions about the past, inviting us to wonder not only how it was built, but why, and what untold stories of human skill, organization, and creativity remain hidden within its ancient stone walls. From the windswept cliffs of Orkney, our journey now moves eastward, across seas and mountains to the rolling hills of eastern Georgia, where an ancient city is etched directly into the rock. Uplistsikhe, whose name translates as the Lord's Fortress, rises like a silent sentinel over the Mekvari River, its honey-colored sandstone cliffs carved into a labyrinth of chambers, tunnels, and passageways. At first glance, it seems almost sculptural, a natural formation that has been shaped and reshaped by human hands over millennia. The sun catches the cliff faces in warm tones, revealing doorways and niches, staircases winding into shadows, and terraces that cling precariously to the hillside, each hinting at a civilization both resourceful and enigmatic. The origins of Uplistsikhe are traced back to the early Iron Age, around the first millennium BCE, though the city continued to evolve through the Hellenistic period, the Roman Empire, and into the early Christian era. Unlike traditional cities built from quarried stone or mud brick, Uplistsikhe was hewn directly from the sandstone cliffs, creating a continuous, rock-cut environment that defies easy replication. Archaeologists have documented theaters, temples, residences, and communal halls, all carved with remarkable precision. Some chambers are vast, their ceilings soaring above, while others are intimate, barely large enough to accommodate a single hearth or bench. The city appears to have been not only a center of daily life, but also a hub of trade, politics, and spirituality, its terraces overlooking routes that once connected the Caucasus to broader empires. Walking through the tunnels, one is immediately struck by the ingenuity required to carve such spaces. The walls are smooth and straight, the ceilings level, and the stairways winding yet stable, demonstrating an understanding of geometry and structural integrity that is astonishing for the tools available at the time. How did the builders measure, plan, and execute such complex networks without modern instruments? How did they prevent the sandstone from collapsing under the weight of the upper terraces, or from erosion over centuries of exposure to wind and rain? These questions linger in the silence of the chambers, almost audible in the faint echo of footsteps across stone floors. Beyond the practical marvels, Uplistsikhe raises profound questions about the people who lived here and their way of life. Temples carved into the cliffs suggest religious devotion, yet the precise rituals remain unknown. Residential areas contain traces of storage, cooking, and daily activity, yet their arrangement within the rock hints at a social organization that remains difficult to decipher. Some scholars suggest that the city's design was influenced by both defensive and ceremonial needs, blending practicality with symbolic architecture. Others note the city's unusual integration with the natural contours of the cliffs, suggesting that spiritual or cosmological considerations may have shaped the very layout of its streets and terraces. Could these spaces have been designed not merely for living, but for guiding experience, controlling movement, or channeling light and shadow in ways that reinforced social or spiritual hierarchies? Speculative interpretations abound. Certain chambers appear almost ceremonial, with niches, altars, and ventilation channels that seem far more sophisticated than required for simple habitation. Some researchers propose that Uplistsikhe's tunnels and subterranean areas served as storage for goods, yet their arrangement and precision hint at additional purposes: ritual, protection, or perhaps even secret communication. The theater, carved directly from rock, is oriented toward the valley below, leading some to wonder if its acoustics were intentional, designed to amplify speech or music across long distances, or if the entire city was conceived as a performative environment, blending public, private, and sacred life into a single rock-bound space. Even the construction techniques provoke curiosity. The sandstone is hard yet workable, and the builders left virtually no visible tool marks, suggesting methods that minimized damage while maximizing precision. Some corridors twist in ways that seem to anticipate structural needs, absorbing weight or channeling water, yet no written instructions have survived. How did knowledge of such construction techniques transmit across generations? Was it preserved orally, through apprenticeship, or encoded in practice itself? And are there sections of the city, hidden behind collapsed terraces or buried beneath centuries of sediment, that could reveal additional insights into the lives and knowledge of its builders? Walking along the cliff edges, the city's terraces cascading down toward the river, one senses the layers of history pressing together. Hellenistic influence, Roman occupation, and early Christian adaptation all woven into the same rock. Uplistsikhe is not merely a collection of carved spaces. It is a living record of human ingenuity and adaptation. A place where engineering, architecture, and culture intersect in ways that remain difficult to replicate even today. Each stairway, chamber, and niche is evidence of planning, skill, and intention. Yet the city as a whole resists simple explanation, challenging assumptions about what ancient societies could accomplish. Despite extensive archaeological research, many questions remain. Why was Uplistsikhe carved into rock rather than built with freestanding materials? What principles guided the arrangement of its streets, terraces, and tunnels? Were certain spaces intentionally hidden, designed for secrecy, ritual, or protection? And perhaps most intriguingly, what secrets lie buried in the unexcavated sections, still shielded by centuries of soil, stone, and shadow, waiting to reveal knowledge that could challenge our understanding of Iron Age civilization? As the evening sun dips behind the hills, casting long shadows across the carved facades, the city seems to whisper across time. Uplistsikhe endures as a place where human skill meets mystery, where the ingenuity of our ancestors confronts the limits of modern understanding. Like the Brochs of Orkney, the Cyclopean walls of Rajgir, and the rock-cut tombs of Sardinia, this city carved from stone asks more questions than it answers, leaving us to wonder not only about the methods of its construction, but about the people, intentions, and knowledge that made such a marvel possible, and what might still remain hidden just beyond our reach. From the carved cliffs of Uplistsikhe, our journey now follows the thread of human ingenuity across the Mediterranean to the fertile plains of western Anatolia, where the ruins of the Tralleis sacred complex rise quietly from the landscape. Nestled near the modern city of Aydın in Turkey, the complex sits amid gently rolling hills and sun-baked stone, its contours echoing both natural forms and deliberate design. At first glance, the site appears modest, a scattering of foundations, fragmented columns, and terraces weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Yet as the light shifts across the ruins, faint lines and carvings emerge, hinting at structures of extraordinary precision and intent, conceived not only for function but for meaning. Tralleis, known in antiquity as an important urban center, contains a sacred complex whose origins stretch back to the Hellenistic period, with successive layers of Roman and Byzantine occupation overlaying earlier constructions. Archaeologists have identified temples, altars, and ceremonial courtyards, many carefully aligned with surrounding topography. The arrangement of these spaces suggests more than mere utility. There is a sense of choreography in the architecture, a deliberate sequence guiding movement through stone corridors, steps, and terraces. The complex was clearly designed to be experienced, to shape the observer's perspective and interaction, drawing attention to altars, celestial alignments, and natural vistas beyond. One of the most striking aspects of Tralleis is the precision of its construction. Stones were cut and fitted with extraordinary accuracy, with joints so tight that even centuries of seismic activity have left many walls intact. In certain sections, terraces rise in near-perfect succession, creating platforms that appear to float above the landscape. Some scholars point to the use of local limestone and marble, worked to such smoothness and exacting angles that modern masons marvel at the skill involved. How did ancient builders achieve such precision without advanced tools or machinery? How were stones of considerable weight moved, shaped, and aligned so flawlessly? And what knowledge guided the sequence and proportions of the terraces and altars, hinting at principles of geometry or even astronomy that remain partially hidden from our understanding? Beyond the technical achievement lies the mystery of intent. The complex's central temple is oriented toward distant hills and the path of the sun, leading some researchers to speculate that certain ceremonies may have been timed to solstices or equinoxes. Other terraces align with watercourses, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of natural resources, drainage, and ritual purification. Yet there are features that defy easy explanation. Subterranean channels whose purpose remains uncertain, niches carved deep into cliff faces, and stairways that seem to vanish into the rock. Were these functional, ceremonial, or symbolic? Could these hidden passages have been designed for processions, for safeguarding sacred objects, or for reasons now lost to memory? Artifacts recovered from Tralleis add another layer of intrigue. Inscriptions, fragments of statues, and decorative reliefs hint at religious practices that combined Hellenistic, Roman, and local Anatolian traditions. Some carvings depict abstract patterns, geometric motifs, or unfamiliar iconography that resist straightforward interpretation. Could these represent secretive rites, coded knowledge, or an early form of symbolic communication? And what of the spatial relationships between temples, courtyards, and terraces? Were these merely aesthetic, or did they reflect a deeper cosmological or spiritual framework, encoded in stone for those who knew how to read it? Speculative theories naturally arise when confronted with such precision and apparent purpose. Some researchers suggest that Tralleis was a center of learning as much as worship, a place where priestly or elite knowledge about astronomy, geometry, and ritual practice was concentrated. Others point to its integration with natural features, the hills, streams, and valleys, as evidence of a sophisticated understanding of the landscape, where sacred architecture was inseparable from topography. Could the builders have possessed methods of surveying and planning that allowed them to manipulate both stone and environment with remarkable foresight? Did they encode knowledge in the alignment of terraces, walls, and altars, knowledge that might still elude modern archaeology? Walking through the ruins, one senses the careful balance between permanence and ephemerality. The stones endure, yet the ceremonies, rituals, and human presence that gave them meaning are gone, leaving only subtle echoes in the alignment of walls, the placement of steps, and the shadows cast at different times of day. Every terrace, every niche, every carefully carved surface is evidence of deliberation and skill, yet the full story remains tantalizingly incomplete. How much of Tralleis lies buried beneath centuries of sediment, overlooked by excavation, or hidden by erosion and vegetation? What architectural secrets, ritual spaces, or symbolic inscriptions may still remain undiscovered, waiting to reveal insights into the minds of those who built this sacred city? As the afternoon sun warms the stone, the ruins seem to exhale a quiet memory, whispering across centuries. Tralleis, like the Brochs of Orkney, the rock-cut cities of Georgia, and the sacred complexes of Anatolia, embodies both human mastery and enduring mystery. It challenges us to consider what ancient builders knew, what skills they possessed, and what purpose guided their choices. And as we step carefully along the worn terraces, following the contours of walls carved with precision and care, we are left with a profound sense of curiosity. The complex remains not only a marvel of construction, but a puzzle of intention, awaiting those patient enough to trace its lines, read its alignments, and listen to the silent testimony of its stone. In Tralleis, as in the other sites we have explored, the past is never fully revealed. It invites us to wonder, to question, and to imagine the knowledge, vision, and skill that went into its creation. What still lies hidden within the stone terraces and subterranean channels, waiting to be discovered, studied, and perhaps understood in a way that reshapes our perception of the ancient world. From the sun-warmed terraces of Tralleis, our journey now returns inland to the heart of Anatolia, where the rolling plains conceal one of the earliest and most enigmatic centers of human civilization in the region. Rising subtly from the undulating landscape of Çorum province in Turkey, Alaca Höyük appears at first as a modest mound, unremarkable against the backdrop of fields and distant hills. Yet this unassuming silhouette hides layers of history spanning millennia, a place where stone, gold, and earth converge to tell stories of ambition, artistry, and mystery. Approaching the site, one notices the careful layout of streets, ceremonial spaces, and the remains of monumental structures, hinting at a civilization whose sophistication often defies expectation. Alaca Höyük, occupied from the late Chalcolithic period into the early Bronze Age, is considered one of the major urban centers of the Hatti civilization, predating the rise of the Hittites. Archaeological excavations have revealed a complex of royal tombs, palatial foundations, temples, and intricately organized settlement layers. Among the most striking discoveries are the so-called royal tombs, richly furnished with gold, silver, and bronze artifacts, including ornate jewelry, ceremonial vessels, and intricately crafted weapons. These tombs suggest a society with remarkable technical skill, social hierarchy, and ritual sophistication, yet they also provoke questions that remain unanswered. How did these early people acquire, shape, and assemble such materials with such precision? And what drove the elaborate rituals surrounding death and burial? Walking among the ruins, one cannot help but notice the precision of the stonework and the scale of the structures. The city plan reflects a deliberate organization of space, streets and terraces arranged for movement, drainage, and access, ceremonial areas distinguished from domestic spaces. The palatial foundations are massive, suggesting large-scale construction techniques, while the tombs themselves are meticulously aligned, sometimes in patterns that hint at symbolic or cosmological significance. How did a civilization without metal tools or advanced machinery achieve such precision? Were there surveying techniques, knowledge of geometry, or ritualized practices that guided construction? And perhaps most intriguing, why were these structures designed to endure, their foundations and walls surviving thousands of years, even as the rest of the world around them changed dramatically? The artistry within Alaca Höyük is equally striking. The hollow gold discs found in several royal tombs, often adorned with sun motifs and geometric patterns, speak to a sophisticated aesthetic sensibility and possible spiritual or cosmological beliefs. Ceremonial axes, gold diadems, and bronze tools reveal not only technical skill but an understanding of proportion, balance, and symbolism. Some carvings appear abstract, almost coded, suggesting that they may have served as markers of status, spiritual function, or secret knowledge. What stories were these objects meant to convey, and to whom? Were they purely decorative, or did they encode knowledge about leadership, ritual, or even astronomy, preserved within layers of gold and bronze for those initiated into their meaning? Beyond the tangible artifacts, the broader layout of Alaca Höyük hints at a civilization deeply attuned to its environment. The settlement is positioned to take advantage of natural resources, overlooking fertile plains and access to trade routes. Yet the arrangement of tombs, temples, and communal areas suggests symbolic or ritual considerations intertwined with practicality. Certain walls and ceremonial areas seem aligned with the movement of the sun, perhaps marking solstices or seasonal cycles. Could the planners of Alaca Höyük have integrated an understanding of celestial patterns into their city design, encoding time and ritual into stone and gold? And if so, what knowledge guided these choices, now lost to the millennia? Speculation naturally accompanies such enigmatic precision. Some scholars suggest that Alaca Höyük represents an early form of complex urban planning, where political, social, and spiritual life were tightly integrated. Others focus on the technical skill evident in the artifacts, questioning whether the society possessed methods of metallurgy, quarrying, and construction that remain underappreciated today. And yet, there are aspects that defy explanation entirely. Tombs with unusual features, objects whose function is unclear, and city layouts that hint at symbolic logic beyond mere practicality. Could there have been knowledge encoded in the architecture itself, preserved for centuries in ways modern archaeologists are only beginning to glimpse? As we walk along the remnants of ceremonial terraces and the partially excavated tombs, the weight of history is palpable. The stones bear silent witness to lives of ambition, devotion, and creativity. Yet the precise methods and motivations behind their construction remain veiled. Each artifact, each alignment, each terrace is evidence of skill and intention. Yet collectively, they form a puzzle that refuses easy solutions. How did the builders of Alaca Höyük combine artistry, engineering, and ritual in ways that have proven difficult to replicate, even with centuries of technological advancement since? Despite extensive excavation and study, Alaca Höyük continues to guard its secrets. Questions remain about the city's full layout, the extent of its influence, and the spiritual or cosmological systems that may have guided its construction. Are there chambers, objects, or alignments still undiscovered beneath layers of earth, waiting to illuminate the knowledge and skill of this ancient civilization? And perhaps most compellingly, what does Alaca Höyük reveal about the capacity for human ingenuity in a time long before our modern tools and techniques existed? As the Anatolian sun casts long shadows across the tombs and terraces, the site exhales a quiet memory of past lives, skill, and ambition. Alaca Höyük, like Tralleis and Uplistsikhe before it, is both a monument to human achievement and a reminder of the mysteries that endure. Its stones, artifacts, and alignments invite reflection, curiosity, and wonder. And as we linger among the ruins, it becomes clear that the city is more than a historical site. It is a puzzle of human knowledge, waiting patiently for those willing to explore, question, and imagine what might still be hidden beneath its enduring stone. From the plains of Anatolia, our journey now follows the faint echo of civilization toward the storied shores of northwestern Turkey, where the legendary city of Troy rises above the Hellespont like a sentinel of myth and history. The early citadel of Troy, layered atop successive settlements, sits atop a mound of earth and stone, its contours shaped by centuries of human occupation. From a distance, it appears as a gentle rise in the landscape, a modest hill overlooking the Dardanelles. Yet as one approaches, the intricacies of its construction begin to emerge. Remnants of fortifications, terraces, and foundations that hint at a city whose origins stretch deep into the Bronze Age, long before the epic tales of Homer gave it eternal fame. Archaeologists identify Troy's earliest layers, often referred to as Troy I and II, as dating back to around 3000 to 2500 BCE. These formative settlements were modest yet remarkably well planned, with defensive walls constructed from stone and mud brick, streets arranged with surprising order, and houses clustered with both practical and strategic intent. Excavations have revealed evidence of domestic life, pottery, tools, and early metallurgy, pointing to a society capable of organizing resources, labor, and knowledge across multiple generations. Yet even in these earliest phases, questions arise. How did the inhabitants of Troy conceive and execute fortifications that have endured, in part, for thousands of years? How did they select and transport the stone used to create walls and terraces with such precision, seemingly anticipating structural demands beyond their technology? One of the most intriguing aspects of the early citadel is its defensive ingenuity. The walls, though weathered and partially reconstructed over millennia, suggest a sophisticated understanding of fortification. Stones were stacked with careful interlocking. Mud brick cores provided stability, and gates were positioned to control access and movement. Some sections reveal traces of towers and bastions, their placement calculated to dominate the surrounding terrain. Yet the methods by which these early builders achieved such structural resilience remain only partially understood. Were these techniques purely practical, or did they incorporate knowledge of geometry, leverage, and load distribution that surpasses what is commonly assumed for Bronze Age settlements? Within the citadel, the layout of homes, courtyards, and communal areas invites further speculation. Streets wind along the contours of the hill, optimizing space and movement, while terraces create platforms for dwellings and public spaces. Some archaeologists note that the arrangement may reflect social hierarchies or ritual practices, with prominent structures positioned for both symbolic and practical impact. Could the design of the early citadel have been intended not only for defense and daily life, but also to communicate status, authority, or spiritual order? And if so, what cultural or technological knowledge informed these choices, now obscured by centuries of sediment and rebuilding? The artifacts uncovered at Troy's earliest levels add to the mystery. Pottery fragments, early tools, and decorative objects demonstrate craftsmanship and aesthetic sensibility, yet certain items defy easy classification. Some tools exhibit unusual construction techniques, while some pottery carries markings and symbols whose meaning remains speculative. Were these functional items imbued with ritual or symbolic significance, or do they represent experimental technologies that have no surviving parallel? And what of the buried layers beneath these early settlements? What secrets of social organization, trade, or spiritual practice might remain concealed, waiting for patient discovery? Speculative interpretations abound, as they do with every site that challenges the limits of ancient capability. Some researchers suggest that Troy's early citadel was more than a simple settlement. It may have been a hub of trade and cultural exchange, strategically located to oversee routes connecting Anatolia, the Aegean, and the Balkans. Others point to the precision of fortifications and urban planning as evidence of advanced knowledge in engineering, surveying, and construction. Could there have been methods, now lost, that allowed Bronze Age societies to manipulate stone, earth, and architecture in ways modern archaeologists still struggle to replicate? Even the relationship of Troy to its environment adds an element of intrigue. The early citadel commands views of the surrounding plain, the river valleys, and the straits, suggesting a keen understanding of both natural resources and strategic advantage. Water management, access to fertile land, and defensive positioning all speak to planning that balances immediate survival with long-term sustainability. Yet within these practical considerations, there is a sense of purpose beyond mere survival, an intentional shaping of the landscape that conveys authority, knowledge, and perhaps even ritual significance. Walking among the remains, one cannot escape a sense of temporal layering. The early citadel is not a static monument but a living record, its stones bearing witness to repeated occupation, destruction, and renewal. Every terrace, every wall, every surviving foundation is a clue, yet collectively they form a puzzle that resists full comprehension. How did the builders coordinate labor, transport materials, and achieve precision without the tools or machinery we take for granted today? And perhaps most compellingly, what cultural, spiritual, or technological knowledge guided these choices, now partially buried beneath layers of earth and myth? Despite decades of excavation and study, Troy's earliest layers continue to guard their secrets. Were the city's defenses purely practical, or did they encode symbolic, spiritual, or astronomical significance? How much knowledge of construction, planning, and social organization remains lost to time? And what lies buried beneath the citadel's successive layers, waiting to reveal insights that could reshape our understanding of Bronze Age Anatolia? As the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the citadel's terraces and foundations, the site exudes a quiet presence. Troy's early citadel, like Alaca Höyük and Tralleis before it, is both evidence of human mastery and a reminder of enduring mystery. It challenges our assumptions about ancient capabilities, inviting us to consider not only how it was built, but why, and what knowledge, skill, and intent have been lost to history. Standing amid the stone walls, one senses the persistent question lingering across millennia. What remains hidden beneath these layers of earth and memory, waiting to reveal the full scope of human ingenuity in an age long before our own? From the storied plains of northwest Turkey, our journey now moves southward across continents and deserts to the stark, sun-scorched landscapes of southern Israel, where the Timna Valley stretches in silent grandeur. Here, amidst jagged sandstone cliffs and arid washes, lie remnants of structures carved, assembled, and aligned by human hands millennia ago. The temples of Timna rise quietly from the desert floor, modest in scale yet monumental in intent, their stone foundations and surviving altars offering tantalizing glimpses of a culture both deeply spiritual and remarkably skilled. From a distance, the valley appears desolate, yet upon closer inspection, the precise placement of stones, terraces, and ceremonial spaces suggests a landscape profoundly shaped by purpose. The temples of Timna, sometimes referred to as Solomon's temples by early researchers, are dated to the 10th to 9th centuries BCE, though recent studies suggest that sacred activity in the valley may have begun centuries earlier. Archaeologists have uncovered a series of small but meticulously constructed sanctuaries, often accompanied by altars, ceremonial pits, and votive objects. Copper mining, which flourished in Timna during this period, may have coexisted with these sacred sites, hinting at a community that integrated industrial activity with ritual observance. Yet, even with these discoveries, many questions remain. How did the builders manage to create such precise stone alignments in a harsh desert environment? And why were these sanctuaries situated in such remote and rugged terrain? Walking among the ruins, one is immediately struck by the care evident in their construction. The stones are shaped to fit tightly together, creating terraces, platforms, and walls that have endured the scorching sun, rare desert rains, and centuries of erosion. Some structures contain small chambers or niches, their purpose uncertain, yet they hint at intentionality beyond simple practicality. Were these spaces used for ritual preparation, storage of sacred objects, or private worship? And how did ancient builders, lacking modern tools, achieve such precision in cutting and fitting stones that continue to resist the passage of time? The temples of Timna are not merely functional. They carry a symbolic weight that is difficult to fully interpret. Altars are carefully oriented, sometimes toward prominent hills, the rising sun, or nearby mineral deposits. Certain ceremonial pits contain traces of offerings, including copper slag, ash, and fragments of pottery. Could these alignments reflect cosmological observations, marking solstices or equinoxes, or were they deliberately designed to harness the symbolic power of the surrounding landscape? Some researchers suggest that the spatial arrangement of these sanctuaries indicates a hierarchy of ritual, with larger central temples serving communal or elite functions, and smaller peripheral structures reserved for private or specialized rites. Artifacts recovered from the site amplify the sense of mystery. Small figurines, ceremonial tools, and symbolic carvings hint at a complex religious life, yet their exact meaning eludes definitive interpretation. Some scholars suggest that these objects represent localized cultic practices, distinct from neighboring civilizations, while others speculate about cross-cultural influences, perhaps linked to trade or migration routes. How did the artisans of Timna transmit their skills, and what knowledge of ritual, metallurgy, or astronomy might have guided the construction of these sacred spaces? And if the desert has preserved these sites so well, what might still lie undiscovered beneath layers of sand and sediment? The broader context of Timna adds further intrigue. The valley's copper resources, exploited extensively in antiquity, suggest that sacred and industrial activity were closely intertwined. Could ritual practices have been designed to sanctify mining and metalwork, integrating spiritual belief with practical endeavor? Some researchers note unusual architectural features, such as terraces and walls that appear to incorporate symbolic or protective geometry, hinting at an understanding of structure and alignment that exceeds what is strictly necessary for stability. Did these builders possess knowledge or techniques that have since been lost to time, and were these sanctuaries deliberately constructed to encode spiritual or technical knowledge within their stones? Walking across the valley, the desert air carrying the faint scent of mineral-rich earth, one senses the careful balance between human ambition and environmental challenge. The temples of Timna are small in scale compared to other monumental sacred sites of the ancient Near East, yet their precision, placement, and integration with the surrounding terrain suggest a civilization deeply attuned to both practical and spiritual considerations. Every stone, every altar, every carefully chosen terrace is a testament to human ingenuity, but also a reminder of how much remains enigmatic, preserved in the alignment of walls, the placement of offerings, and the shadows cast across the desert floor. Despite extensive study, many questions about the temples of Timna remain unanswered. Were the sanctuaries purely religious, or did they serve multiple roles, combining ritual, metallurgy, and social organization? How did builders achieve the precision, orientation, and durability evident in the structures? And what sections, chambers, or objects remain hidden beneath the valley's surface, waiting to illuminate the knowledge, skill, and intention of those who shaped this sacred landscape? As the late afternoon sun paints the sandstone cliffs in deep ochre and gold, the temples of Timna exude a quiet, enduring presence. They are a testament to human ingenuity, yet they preserve their mystery, refusing to reveal all their secrets at once. Like Troy, Alaca, Höyük, and Tralleis before them, these desert sanctuaries remind us that the past is both a record of achievement and a puzzle of intention. Every stone and terrace invites reflection and curiosity, urging us to consider not only how these temples were built, but why and what knowledge may still lie hidden beneath the sands, waiting for patient discovery. From the sun-baked deserts of Timna, our journey now crosses the Mediterranean to the island of Crete, where the rolling hills and fertile plains conceal the foundations of one of the earliest known centers of complex civilization in Europe, Knossos. Perched on a gentle rise near the Keratos River, the Pre-Minoan palace of Knossos emerges from the earth as a sprawling labyrinth of stone and memory. Even today, as archaeologists uncover its remnants, the site evokes awe. The outlines of walls, courts, and corridors, some preserved and some reconstructed, hint at a palace of extraordinary scale, organization, and sophistication long before the rise of the classical world. The origins of Knossos stretch back to the early Bronze Age, around 1900 BCE, preceding the flourishing Minoan civilization for which the palace would later become renowned. Excavations reveal a complex of residential quarters, ceremonial spaces, storage rooms, and workshops, organized across multiple levels with careful attention to both form and function. The scale of the architecture is remarkable. Walls are thick and carefully aligned, floors supported by timber beams, and corridors arranged in a seemingly deliberate sequence. How, one wonders, did these early builders coordinate such a large and intricate structure without the surveying instruments and engineering conventions we take for granted today? Walking through the remains, it becomes clear that Knossos was not simply a palace in the modern sense, but a sophisticated urban complex, blending domestic, administrative, and ceremonial functions. Terraces and courtyards are oriented to take advantage of natural light, while stairways and corridors connect levels with both efficiency and spatial elegance. Storage rooms reveal evidence of complex record-keeping, including early forms of linear A-script, suggesting that the inhabitants managed resources, labor, and trade on a scale rarely seen for this period. Yet, the methods by which such a society organized space, labor, and materials remain partially obscure. Did they possess advanced architectural knowledge now lost to time? And how much of their urban planning was guided by practical necessity versus symbolic or ritual intention? Perhaps the most captivating aspect of Knossos is the palace's integration of art, symbolism, and space. Frescoes, pottery fragments, and carved objects hint at rituals, beliefs, and social structures, yet their meaning remains largely speculative. Some scholars suggest that the palace served as a ceremonial center as much as a seat of governance, with spaces deliberately designed to manipulate perception, guide movement, and create a sense of hierarchy. Were certain corridors and chambers used for processions, ritual gatherings, or initiations? Could the very layout of the palace, with its labyrinthine corridors and hidden corners, encode knowledge about authority, spirituality, or cosmic order? Even the construction techniques provoke curiosity. Walls were built using large stones interspersed with mud brick, bound and reinforced to resist both seismic activity and the passage of time. Timber beams supported upper floors, while carefully carved thresholds and doorways suggest a detailed understanding of both structural stress and movement through space. How did the builders of Knossos determine the precise dimensions and alignments needed to maintain stability over centuries? And what tools, techniques, or practices allowed them to manipulate such materials with such accuracy, long before the advent of metal instruments or formal engineering manuals? Speculative interpretations naturally follow from these observations. Some researchers argue that Knossos reflects a level of social and technological organization that is difficult to reconcile with what we assume of early Bronze Age societies. Others point to the alignment of certain chambers and courtyards with solar and seasonal cycles, suggesting that ritual and astronomical observation may have guided the design. Could the palace have been intended not just as a political or residential center, but as a kind of observatory or cosmological instrument, embedding knowledge in stone, timber, and space? And if so, what else might remain hidden in the structure, obscured by collapsed walls, sediment, or centuries of reconstruction? Artifacts recovered from the site provide further insight and yet deepen the mystery. Fragments of frescoes depicting ceremonial processions, religious symbols, and vibrant natural motifs reveal a sophisticated aesthetic sensibility. Pottery, tools, and small ritual objects suggest a culture capable of advanced craftsmanship and nuanced symbolism. Yet certain objects defy easy classification, their function or meaning uncertain, hinting at lost knowledge or practices. What roles did these items play in daily life, ritual, or governance? Were they practical, ceremonial, or deliberately coded with meaning known only to a select few? The broader implications of Knossos are equally compelling. Its scale, organization, and precision suggest a society that could mobilize and coordinate significant labor and resources, combining technical skill with social cohesion. The integration of ceremonial spaces with domestic and administrative areas hints at a worldview where governance, religion, and daily life were intertwined in ways that remain largely opaque to us. How much of this knowledge was lost in the centuries following the palace's decline, and how much of it was preserved only in hints, symbols, and the very layout of the surviving structures? As one walks along the terraces, peering into partially excavated chambers, it is impossible not to sense the careful thought and intention that shaped every stone and corridor. The Pre-Minoan palace of Knossos, like the temples of Timna and the early citadel of Troy before it, is a testament to human ingenuity, skill, and imagination. Yet it is also a site of enduring mystery. Every alignment, every carving, every structural choice speaks of knowledge and purpose, but also challenges our understanding of what was possible in an era long before modern tools, machinery, or engineering conventions. Despite decades of excavation and study, Knossos continues to pose questions rather than provide answers. How did its builders achieve such precision in construction, organization, and spatial planning? What knowledge, ritual, or symbolic framework guided the design of corridors, courtyards, and ceremonial spaces? And what secrets remain hidden beneath collapsed walls, buried floors, or undiscovered chambers, waiting to reveal insights that could reshape our understanding of the earliest complex civilizations of Europe? As the Mediterranean sun casts long shadows over the partially restored walls and terraces, the palace exudes a quiet yet compelling presence. Knossos is more than a ruin. It is a living testament to the imagination, skill, and ambition of a people whose knowledge continues to elude us. Like Timna, Troy, and Alaca Höyük before it, the site invites reflection, curiosity, and awe, prompting a question that remains unanswered. What remains hidden, waiting patiently beneath the stone and earth, preserving knowledge, ritual, and mastery that may never be fully understood? From the sun-drenched ruins of Knossos, our journey now turns westward, across the Mediterranean Sea, to the rocky landscapes of Minorca, where a singular, enigmatic structure rises from the rugged terrain, the Naveta des Tudons. At first glance, it resembles a monumental stone vessel, its elongated trapezoidal form stretching across the limestone plateau, massive yet graceful in its simplicity. The structure appears almost sculpted by giants, a harmonious marriage of geometry and gravity, its carefully fitted stones stacked without mortar, forming walls that have withstood millennia of wind, rain, and human passage. Even in its silence, the Naveta exudes an unmistakable presence, a testament to both human ingenuity and enduring mystery. Dating to the Late Bronze Age, around 1000 to 800 BCE, the Naveta des Tudons is the largest and best preserved of Minorca's Navetas, prehistoric chamber tombs unique to the Balearic Islands. Unlike conventional burial mounds, the Naveta is built from immense, precisely cut stones, forming a hollow interior with an entrance at one end and a curved roof that once may have been covered with additional stones or earth. Inside, archaeologists have found skeletal remains, pottery, and personal objects, suggesting ritualized funerary practices, yet the full significance of the structure and the methods by which it was constructed remain elusive. How did Bronze Age builders shape, transport, and assemble stones weighing several tons with such precision? And what knowledge guided the alignment, proportions, and stability of a structure that continues to endure long after its builders vanished? Approaching the Naveta, one becomes immediately aware of its scale and sophistication. The stones forming the walls are uniform in height and thickness, stacked with such care that no mortar is needed to bind them. Each stone appears to interlock with its neighbors, a technique that confers remarkable structural stability. Inside, the vaulted chamber curves upward, the ceiling rising with a sense of intentional design, creating a space that is both intimate and monumental. Could these design choices have been purely practical to protect remains and artifacts from the elements, or did they serve a symbolic purpose reflecting cosmological beliefs, social hierarchy, or ritualized concepts of death and afterlife? The placement of the Naveta is equally compelling. Situated atop a limestone rise, it commands views of surrounding valleys and plains, connecting the tomb to the landscape in a way that seems deliberate. Some scholars suggest that orientation may have held ritual significance, aligning with the sun, cardinal points, or local topographical features. Was the positioning intended to honor ancestors, mark territorial boundaries, or integrate the structure into broader ceremonial networks across the island? And if so, what knowledge guided these choices, preserved in stone rather than text, awaiting discovery through observation and careful interpretation? Artifacts recovered from the interior offer tantalizing clues. Skeletal remains indicate that multiple individuals were interred within the chamber over generations, perhaps representing a community or kinship group. Alongside these remains were pottery fragments, tools, and personal items, carefully placed with apparent ritual intent. Yet many aspects remain mysterious. Certain objects appear deliberately broken or arranged in patterns whose meaning is obscure, while the very act of creating such a durable, monumental tomb suggests technical skill and societal organization beyond what might be expected of a small island community. How did these people coordinate labor, transport massive stones, and maintain construction precision across generations? Were their tools, techniques, or knowledge now lost, enabling feats that modern engineers find challenging even with advanced equipment? Speculative theories naturally arise. Some suggest that Navetas functioned as both tombs and ceremonial centers, combining practical burial with ritualized commemoration of lineage or status. Others propose that their shape and orientation encode symbolic or astronomical knowledge, perhaps representing a local understanding of cosmology or the passage of time. Could the Naveta des Tudons, like other megalithic structures across the world, reflect knowledge intentionally embedded in stone, geometry, and spatial experience, intended to endure across centuries and communicate with future generations? Walking around the structure, one is struck by its resonance with other megalithic monuments studied across the globe, from the chambered tombs of Sardinia to the stone complexes of Anatolia and the Mediterranean. In every instance, these structures demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of materials, geometry, and human perception, combined with ritual, social, or symbolic intent. Yet they resist full replication today, not merely because of their size or technical difficulty, but because of the intangible knowledge embedded in their construction, the planning, labor organization, and cultural context that guided their creation. Even after extensive archaeological study, the Naveta des Tudons retains its mysteries. Why was it constructed in this particular shape, using such massive stones? What rituals, beliefs, or social structures dictated the placement of remains and artifacts within its chamber? And what other secrets lie hidden in the surrounding landscape? Buried chambers, unexcavated terraces, or alignment markers that could reveal further insights into the culture that built it. Each unanswered question deepens the sense of awe, emphasizing that this is not merely a tomb, but a carefully conceived statement of human ingenuity, ritual, and memory. As the Mediterranean sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the trapezoidal walls, the Naveta seems to exhale the weight of millennia. It is a monument to the skill and imagination of its builders, yet it preserves its secrets, inviting reflection, curiosity, and wonder. Like Knossos, Timna, and Troy before it, the Naveta des Tudons challenges our assumptions about ancient capabilities, asking us to consider not only how it was built, but why, and what knowledge, buried in stone and earth, may still lie hidden, waiting for patient discovery. From the sun-soaked limestone of Minorca, our journey now crosses the Atlantic to the rich, fertile floodplains of the Mississippi River in what is today Illinois. Here, amid the rolling fields and gentle curves of tributaries, lies the heart of one of North America's most enigmatic ancient settlements, Cahokia. Before the earthen mounds that define the site were raised, there was a sprawling, pre-mound city, an intricate network of plazas, habitation areas, and ceremonial spaces that hints at an advanced society whose sophistication continues to puzzle researchers. The flat, open landscape allows the imagination to trace long-lost streets, communal areas, and structures that no longer rise above the earth, yet whose presence can still be discerned in soil stains, post holes, and subtle shifts in topography. Cahokia, at its peak between 1050 and 1200 CE, was the largest urban center north of Mexico, home to tens of thousands of people. Yet before the construction of Monk's Mound and its surrounding earthen structures, the Pre-Mound city existed as a carefully organized settlement, its spatial patterns suggesting both planning and purpose. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of plazas arranged with geometric precision, long avenues connecting ceremonial and domestic zones, and clusters of posts that indicate large timber structures. Even without the towering mounds, the Pre-Mound city conveys an extraordinary degree of organization, social coordination, and understanding of the landscape. How did the builders determine the alignment of plazas and thoroughfares? And what knowledge guided the positioning of ceremonial spaces in relation to the natural features of the floodplain? Walking across the site, the subtle features of the landscape reveal glimpses of past ingenuity. Soil resistivity studies and careful excavation reveal the outlines of houses, workshops, and palisades, each carefully placed within the broader grid of the settlement. The central plaza, expansive and open, suggests large gatherings for ritual, trade, or governance. Surrounding this space, post holes mark the footprints of structures that may have been civic buildings, temples, or residences for elite families. The scale and precision of these arrangements are striking. How did a pre-industrial society coordinate labor, resources, and spatial planning on such a grand scale? And what societal structures enabled such a concentration of population and expertise in a single, organized settlement? Evidence from the Pre-Mound city points to sophisticated engineering and environmental adaptation. The Mississippi floodplain is fertile but prone to seasonal inundation. Builders of Cahokia appear to have developed strategies for drainage, levees, and soil management, creating a habitable, sustainable urban environment. Could these engineering solutions reflect knowledge transmitted over generations, encoded in practice rather than in written form? And how much of this practical expertise was intertwined with spiritual or cosmological belief, guiding the placement of homes, plazas, and ceremonial structures in ways that are not immediately obvious to modern observers? The artifacts recovered from Pre-Mound Cahokia add layers of intrigue. Pottery, stone tools, copper ornaments, and carved objects indicate a society with artistic, technical, and ritual sophistication. Certain objects suggest symbolic or ceremonial functions, yet their precise meaning remains elusive. Some artifacts, such as finely crafted effigies or elaborately carved ceremonial blades, reveal technical mastery that seems difficult to reconcile with the tools available at the time. Were these items functional, ritualistic, or both? And did their design reflect knowledge of metallurgy, geometry, or symbolism that has been partially lost to history? The organization of space within the Pre-Mound city raises further questions. Streets and plazas often align along cardinal axes, suggesting careful planning and possibly astronomical awareness. Certain clusters of posts and structures may indicate hierarchical or communal arrangements, hinting at social stratification or ritualized activity. Could these patterns have served as a physical manifestation of governance, cosmology, or communal ideology? Were the planners of Cahokia encoding knowledge in the very layout of their city, ensuring that every plaza, pathway, and timber post contributed to a broader cultural or spiritual vision? Speculative interpretations abound when faced with such complexity. Some researchers suggest that Pre-Mound Cahokia functioned as a ceremonial hub, a regional center that coordinated religious observance, trade, and social governance across a vast network of smaller settlements. Others point to the engineering and construction feats as evidence of an advanced understanding of materials, weight distribution, and urban planning. How did the inhabitants manipulate timber, earth, and stone to create structures and spaces that could support such a dense population? Were there lost techniques, methods, or organizational principles that enabled them to build on a scale and with a precision difficult to replicate even today? Even the environmental integration of the settlement is striking. The Pre-Mound city was closely linked to rivers, floodplains, and forests, exploiting natural resources while shaping the landscape to meet human needs. The placement of plazas, pathways, and ceremonial areas suggests careful observation of seasonal cycles, water flow, and soil characteristics. Could these choices reflect not only practical knowledge, but also spiritual or cosmological awareness, embedding meaning and function within the very fabric of the city? Despite extensive archaeological work, much of the Pre-Mound city remains hidden beneath soil, vegetation, and the monumental earthen mounds that would later define Cahokia. Questions persist. What structures, objects, or alignments have yet to be discovered? How did the inhabitants transmit technical and ritual knowledge across generations? And perhaps most intriguingly, how did a society so sophisticated in planning, engineering, and ceremonial design emerge in North America, achieving feats that continue to challenge modern understanding? As the late afternoon sun stretches long shadows across the floodplain, the remnants of Cahokia's Pre-Mound city exude a quiet majesty. It is a place where human ingenuity, social organization, and environmental mastery converge, yet where enduring mysteries remain. Like Naveta des Tudons, Knossos, and Timna before it, The pre-Mound city of Cahokia challenges assumptions about what ancient societies were capable of achieving. Its subtle traces, etched into the earth and preserved in artifacts, invite reflection, curiosity, and wonder. And as we trace the outlines of plazas, post holes, and ceremonial spaces, one cannot help but ask, what secrets remain buried beneath the soil, waiting to reveal the full scope of human ingenuity, knowledge, and intention that made this extraordinary settlement possible? From the fertile floodplains of Cahokia, our journey arcs northward, across the Atlantic and the Baltic Sea, to the windswept shores and rolling meadows of Gotland, the largest island in Sweden. Here, on a quiet hilltop overlooking the island's rugged coastline, sits a megalithic grave mound, a monument of stone that rises from the earth with a timeless presence. At first glance, it seems unassuming, a simple mound of rounded stones and earth. Yet the closer one approaches, the subtleties of its construction begin to emerge. The stones, carefully arranged, form a chamber within the mound, a sanctuary of memory that has survived the relentless sweep of northern storms, centuries of agriculture, and the passage of countless human generations. Archaeologists date the Gotlandic grave mounds to the Nordic Bronze Age, approximately 1700 to 500 BCE, though their significance likely predates even these estimates. These structures, often circular or oval in shape, served as burial sites, but their design suggests far more than simple interment. The stones are not randomly placed. They are meticulously shaped and arranged to create chambers, passages, and supporting walls. Even today, one cannot help but wonder, how did a society without metal tools or mechanized equipment manage to quarry, transport, and position stones weighing several tons with such precision? What knowledge guided the careful balance of form and stability, allowing these mounds to endure for millennia in a climate as harsh and variable as northern Scandinavia? Walking among the stones, the intentionality of the builders becomes evident. The chambers are often oriented along specific lines, sometimes toward celestial points, the rising or setting sun at solstices, or toward notable features in the surrounding landscape. Could these alignments have been purely symbolic, a reflection of spiritual belief or cosmological understanding, or did they also serve functional purposes, perhaps related to seasonal ceremonies, the marking of time, or communal rituals? Within the chambers, skeletal remains, pottery fragments, and ornamental objects hint at elaborate funerary practices. Yet the full meaning of these practices remains enigmatic. Were they expressions of social hierarchy, spiritual devotion, or both? And what knowledge of geometry, weight distribution, or stonecraft did these northern societies possess, enabling them to achieve both stability and aesthetic harmony in these monumental tombs? The sheer effort involved in constructing these megalithic mounds invites reflection. Stones were often quarried from distant locations, their surfaces worked and shaped to fit into the overall structure without the benefit of mortar. Timber beams were occasionally integrated to support ceilings or create passageways, demonstrating an understanding of structural principles that belies the simplicity of the tools available at the time. How did these communities coordinate labor, transport, and construction techniques across generations? Was the knowledge passed down orally, through apprenticeship, or perhaps encoded in ritual practices that intertwined spiritual and practical instruction? And how much of that knowledge has been lost to history, leaving us only with the stones and the faint traces of human intent? Artifacts recovered from the Gotlandic mounds offer further intrigue. Bronze tools, jewelry, and carved figures suggest a society capable of both technical mastery and artistic sophistication. Some items, however, defy easy classification. Abstract carvings, unusual stone shapes, and placement patterns that suggest intentionality beyond mere decoration. Could these elements have served as symbolic markers, cosmological references, or even mnemonic devices, preserving knowledge within the structure of the tomb itself? And if so, what did the builders hope to communicate, and to whom? Were these messages intended for the living, the dead, or perhaps both, encoded in geometry, orientation, and artifact placement? The landscape surrounding the mound amplifies the mystery. Situated atop a rise, the tomb commands views of distant shores, forests, and valleys. The choice of location seems deliberate, as though the site itself is part of the ritual or symbolic purpose. Some scholars speculate that these elevated mounds functioned as markers for territorial boundaries, ceremonial centers, or points of astronomical observation, integrating human construction seamlessly with the natural environment. How did these early communities perceive the relationship between land, sky, and the sacred? And how much of this relationship is hidden today, discernible only through careful measurement, observation, and interpretation? Speculative theories naturally arise when faced with structures that resist easy explanation. Could the megalithic builders of Gotland have possessed knowledge of structural mechanics, astronomy, or symbolic design that has no surviving written record? Might the layout, orientation, and construction methods of these mounds reflect a codified system of knowledge, deliberately preserved across generations in stone rather than text? And if so, what broader purposes did these structures serve, beyond burial, that remain hidden beneath layers of earth, vegetation, and time? Even as archaeological techniques grow more sophisticated, much of the prehistory of Gotland's grave mounds remains shrouded. Geophysical surveys, excavation, and artifact analysis reveal tantalizing hints: post holes indicating wooden structures, traces of ceremonial fires, and subtle alignments suggestive of deliberate planning. Yet, with each discovery, new questions arise. How were these massive stones moved without advanced tools? What rituals accompanied construction, and how were these coordinated across communities? And what secrets remain, undisturbed beneath soil and moss, preserving knowledge, practice, and intention that modern researchers can only imagine? Walking across the mound today, one feels the profound sense of continuity and endurance. The stones bear witness to countless lives, ceremonies, and generations, yet they retain a deliberate silence, offering no answers beyond their very presence. The megalithic grave mound at Gotland, like Cahokia, Naveta des Tudons, and Knossos before it, challenges assumptions about what ancient societies could achieve. Its precision, scale, and subtle integration with the surrounding landscape testify to human skill, ingenuity, and purpose, yet they also preserve a mystery, one that endures because the knowledge and methods behind its construction are largely inaccessible to us today. As the northern sun dips low, casting elongated shadows across the stones, the mound exudes a quiet, commanding presence. It is both monument and message, evidence of human mastery and enigma, inviting reflection, curiosity, and awe. What did the builders hope to convey through form, placement, and construction? What knowledge of engineering, ritual, and astronomy lies encoded in the very stones, awaiting discovery? And, perhaps most compellingly, how much remains hidden, preserved beneath the surface of the earth, patiently guarding the secrets of a civilization whose ingenuity challenges our understanding even today? In contemplating the megalithic grave mound at Gotland, one is reminded that the past is never fully revealed. Every stone, every alignment, every artifact is a fragment of a larger puzzle, silently challenging us to think beyond conventional explanations. It beckons the observer to ask questions without expecting immediate answers, to wonder at human skill and ambition, and to consider that some knowledge, carefully embedded in earth and stone, may still elude us, waiting for those patient enough to uncover it. From the windswept coasts and stone-laden landscapes of Gotland, our journey now turns southward once more, following the contours of history and the Mediterranean coastline to the Aegean region of western Turkey. Nestled on the slopes of Mount Mycale, overlooking the fertile Menderes River plain, lies the Hellenistic city of Priene. Even in its ruined state, the city conveys a striking sense of order, foresight, and sophistication. Unlike many ancient sites, Priene seems to have been conceived in advance, a settlement where urban planning, topography, and architecture converge with remarkable precision. From afar, one perceives a grid of streets and terraces, aligned to the contours of the hillside, hinting at an understanding of space, geometry, and human movement that seems almost modern in its meticulousness. Priene reached its peak during the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE, a time of Hellenistic expansion and innovation. Its origins, however, predate this period, and the city is thought to have been deliberately relocated multiple times due to changing river courses and environmental pressures. The current site, carefully laid out in a regular grid, demonstrates a level of urban planning unusual even for the classical world. Streets intersect at right angles, public spaces occupy prominent positions, and residential areas are organized in compact yet orderly clusters. How did the planners of Priene determine the optimal layout for both functionality and aesthetic harmony, and what knowledge guided their careful adaptation to the slope of Mount Mycale? Approaching the ruins, the precision of its architecture is immediately evident. Houses and public buildings are constructed from local marble, cut and fitted with remarkable skill. Foundations remain intact for terraces and colonnades, while stairways connect multiple levels with geometric regularity. The city's most prominent structures, the Temple of Athena, the Agora, and the theater, speak not only to civic and religious function, but also to an understanding of proportion, perspective, and human experience. Could the alignment of streets, sightlines, and terraces have been guided by more than practical considerations, perhaps incorporating philosophical or cosmological principles into the very design of the city? Priene's urban grid is complemented by ingenious engineering. Water systems, drainage channels, and terraced foundations demonstrate careful adaptation to the steep hillside. The city is built with an acute awareness of environmental constraints, maximizing access to sunlight, wind, and water, while mitigating erosion and runoff. The level of foresight required for such coordinated construction suggests not only skilled labor, but also knowledge of surveying, materials, and structural behavior that may surpass what we typically expect of ancient planners. How much of this knowledge was intuitive, derived from trial and error over generations, and how much was systematically transmitted, perhaps codified in forms now lost to history? The Temple of Athena, perched on the city's highest terrace, exemplifies both craftsmanship and mystery. Its columns, precisely spaced and proportioned, create a sense of harmony and stability that has intrigued architects and archaeologists alike. Despite centuries of exposure and partial collapse, the temple's form remains remarkably intact. How were these massive marble blocks quarried, transported, and raised with such precision? Could the builders have understood principles of weight distribution, leverage, and geometry in ways that modern observers still struggle to replicate? And what symbolic or spiritual significance might have guided their choice of materials, placement, and alignment within the broader urban context of Priene? Artifacts uncovered throughout the city further complicate our understanding. Inscriptions, reliefs, pottery, and everyday tools provide evidence of a literate, highly organized society engaged in trade, governance, and religious life. Yet some finds remain difficult to interpret. Objects whose function is unclear, inscriptions whose meaning is ambiguous, or construction techniques that seem unusually advanced for the time. Did these artifacts represent practical tools, ceremonial objects, or encoded knowledge? And how did such a society achieve the coordination, labor, and technical skill necessary to execute an entire city in alignment with both environmental and symbolic principles? Speculative interpretations naturally follow from these observations. Some researchers suggest that Priene's meticulous planning reflects not only practicality, but a philosophical commitment to harmony, proportion, and rational design, inspired by the intellectual currents of the Hellenistic world. Others propose that certain alignments, streets, stairways, and public buildings may correspond to astronomical events, seasonal patterns, or ritual processions, integrating civic life with cosmological awareness. Could it be that the city's architects intentionally encoded knowledge of both the natural world and human society into the very stone and layout of Priene, preserving insights across generations? Even the city's environmental context adds layers of intrigue. Priene is perched above the fertile meander plain, yet the site selection also required mastery of slope, drainage, and erosion control. Every terrace, retaining wall, and foundation demonstrates a deliberate engagement with the terrain, balancing natural forces with human ambition. Was this choice purely pragmatic, or did it reflect an understanding of the symbolic resonance of elevation, visibility, and topographical dominance? Did the planners of Priene perceive a connection between the city's orientation, the natural landscape, and the spiritual or civic functions of its structures, integrating practical and symbolic knowledge in ways that elude modern comprehension? Despite centuries of study, many questions about Priene remain unanswered. How did ancient architects achieve such precision in both layout and construction without the surveying tools of today? What methods allowed for the transportation and placement of massive marble blocks with such accuracy? And perhaps most compellingly, what broader knowledge of urban planning, geometry, engineering, or ritual was encoded in the city's design, now partially obscured by time and ruin? Each unanswered question deepens the sense of mystery, challenging assumptions about the capabilities of Hellenistic societies and the ingenuity they applied in the creation of monumental, enduring urban spaces. Walking through the city today, along streets lined with foundations and terraces, it is possible to sense the thoughtfulness behind each element: the careful spacing of colonnades, the alignment of stairways with terraces, the measured integration of public, private, and ceremonial spaces. The Hellenistic city of Priene, like the megalithic grave mound at Gotland, Cahokia, and Knossos before it, embodies both human mastery and enduring mystery. Its precision, scale, and subtle integration with the environment testify to a civilization capable of extraordinary technical and intellectual achievement. Yet it also invites reflection on what remains unknown: knowledge, techniques, and intentions that have been lost to time, preserved only in stone, earth, and subtle alignment. As the afternoon sun begins its descent over the Aegean horizon, shadows fall across the terraces and colonnades, highlighting the meticulous care evident in every aspect of the city. Priene stands as both evidence and enigma, a city designed with purpose, skill, and foresight, yet retaining questions about the methods, knowledge, and motivations that shaped it. How much of its sophistication was derived from technical mastery? How much from philosophical or ritual insight? And what secrets remain buried beneath layers of earth and history? And in contemplating these mysteries, one is reminded, as with every site we have explored, that the past is as much a puzzle as it is a record, preserving human ingenuity while guarding its deepest secrets against the full understanding of those who follow. From the sun-drenched terraces of Priene, our journey now moves northward across seas and centuries to the wind-swept shores of Orkney, off the northern coast of Scotland. Here, amid rolling grasslands and the relentless rhythm of North Atlantic waves, lies one of the most extraordinary and enigmatic remnants of prehistoric Europe: Skara Brae. At first glance, It appears as little more than low-lying stone foundations embedded in the earth, but closer inspection reveals a settlement of astonishing sophistication. This is a place where human ingenuity and environmental adaptation converge, a village preserved almost intact beneath layers of sand and peat, surviving the fury of storms and the passage of millennia. Skara Brae, dating to approximately 3,200 to 2,500 BCE, predates both the pyramids of Egypt and Stonehenge. Its discovery in the mid-19th century, after a storm stripped away the covering earth, revealed a village unlike any previously known. 8 stone houses, connected by covered passageways and built with precise interlocking walls, form a compact settlement that seems both practical and deliberately planned. Each dwelling contains built-in stone furniture, from beds and dressers to hearths and storage units, meticulously integrated into the architecture. How did a community, living in a harsh, windswept climate without metal tools, manage to construct such durable and precisely arranged homes? And what motivated the uniformity and organization evident throughout the settlement? Walking through Skara Brae today, one is struck by the intimacy and functionality of the space. Interiors were arranged with care. Beds of stone slab line the walls, hearths occupy central positions, and low benches and storage spaces suggest both comfort and efficiency. Yet the houses are not mere shelters. Their design reflects a deeper understanding of human needs, environmental adaptation, and community life. How did these early builders achieve such precise stone cutting and fitting using only tools of bone, antler, and stone? Were the dimensions and layouts standardized according to practical necessity, symbolic order, or both? The settlement's engineering is as remarkable as its architecture. Skara Brae's houses are partially subterranean, dug into the earth to protect against wind and frost. Covered passageways link the homes, providing sheltered movement across the village. The village layout demonstrates careful planning, suggesting not only architectural skill, but also social coordination. Was this level of organization purely functional, or did it reflect a deliberate social or ritual structure? Could the alignment of homes and passageways encode knowledge of seasonal sun angles, prevailing winds, or community hierarchies? And if so, what was the thought process behind such integration of environment, architecture, and human life? Artifacts found within Skara Brae further deepen the mystery. Stone tools, decorative objects, and carved bone implements reveal a society capable of sophisticated craftsmanship. Some objects, however, resist straightforward explanation. Finely carved figurines, abstract patterns, and uniquely shaped implements suggest symbolic or ritualistic purposes. Were these items practical, ceremonial, or both? And if symbolic, what meanings did they carry, spiritual, social, or astronomical, encoded in ways we can no longer fully decipher? Each discovery invites speculation. What knowledge did the inhabitants possess, and how was it applied in both daily life and communal practice? The environmental context of Skara Brae amplifies the questions. The village sits near the coast, yet the sea that sustained its people also threatened them with erosion and storms. Builders seem to have understood both the protective potential of the landscape and the dangers it posed. Stone foundations were anchored to bedrock when possible, passageways were partially covered, and homes were dug into the earth to moderate temperature and resist wind. Could this knowledge of material properties, structural balance, and environmental adaptation have been passed down orally or even encoded in ritual practice? And what does the village's survival tell us about the methods, skills, and foresight of its builders? Skara Brae's place in the broader prehistoric world adds further intrigue. Similarities in construction techniques with other Neolithic sites across Orkney, as well as connections to broader Atlantic and European traditions, suggest a network of shared knowledge. yet the precision and uniformity of Skara Brae are exceptional. Could this village reflect not only practical ingenuity, but also a cultural or philosophical emphasis on order, stability, and communal life? And if so, how was this knowledge transmitted and preserved in a pre-literate society? Speculative interpretations arise naturally from these observations. Some suggest Skara Brae's design reflects symbolic or ritual considerations embedded in its layout, furniture, and alignment. Others point to the extraordinary precision and durability of the construction as evidence of advanced techniques, perhaps lost to history. Could the village have functioned as more than a residential settlement, perhaps as a center of communal ritual, astronomical observation, or encoded knowledge that guided social cohesion? And if so, how much of this knowledge has vanished, preserved only in the stones, passages, and hearths that remain? Despite extensive archaeological study, much about Skara Brae remains unresolved. How did the inhabitants achieve such precision without advanced tools? What guided the uniformity of houses, the planning of passageways, and the orientation of hearths? And what secrets might remain buried beneath the soil, concealed in refuse pits, post holes, or subtle alignments that could shed further light on this enigmatic society? Each unanswered question deepens the sense of mystery, reinforcing the idea that Skara Brae, like Priene, Cahokia, and Gotland before it, embodies human mastery while withholding the full measure of its knowledge. Walking among the stone walls, tracing the contours of hearths, and imagining the lives of those who lived here, one cannot help but feel the village's quiet intelligence. Skara Brae is not only a record of survival in a harsh environment, but also a monument to ingenuity, skill, and communal vision. Its precision, functionality, and harmony with its surroundings suggest a society that understood both its environment and its own capabilities in ways that continue to challenge modern observers. Yet it remains, in essence, a puzzle, a settlement that survives intact, yet whose methods, motivations, and hidden knowledge remain elusive. As the winds sweep across the Orkney coastline and sunlight glances off the stones of Skara Brae, the village exudes a timeless presence. It is at once familiar and alien, practical and enigmatic, a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring mysteries of prehistory. Like every site we have explored, from Naveta des Tudons to Priene, Skara Brae invites reflection, curiosity, and wonder. How much of its sophistication can be explained, and how much remains inaccessible, preserved in design, technique, and intention? And ultimately, what secrets lie hidden beneath the stone, sand, and peat, waiting patiently to illuminate a way of life that, while long vanished, still speaks to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of our distant ancestors? From the wind-swept shores of Orkney and the silent stone streets of Skara Brae, our journey now spans the vast reaches of the Pacific, landing on the rugged, fertile terrain of Ganghwa Island off the western coast of Korea. Rising from fields and hills, the dolmens of Ganghwa present a striking and enigmatic sight. Massive stone slabs, balanced with uncanny precision atop supporting stones, forming chambers and table-like structures that have endured millennia of wind, rain, and human activity. Even today, these megaliths command attention, their sheer size and weight provoking questions that have perplexed generations of scholars and visitors alike. The air here feels heavy with the echoes of the distant past, a quiet reminder that these stones are more than mere monuments. They are thresholds to mystery. Ganghwa Island hosts hundreds of dolmens, among the densest concentrations anywhere in the world. These megaliths, dating from approximately 1000 to 300 BCE, were constructed during the Korean Bronze Age, yet their purpose and methods of construction remain elusive. There are two primary forms: the table-type dolmens, with a massive capstone resting on supporting stones, and the go table type, smaller but equally precise. Archaeologists generally agree these structures served as burial sites for elite individuals, yet the complexity, scale, and uniformity of construction suggest far more than simple interment. How did communities of this era coordinate the quarrying, transportation, and positioning of stones weighing several tons without metal machinery or wheeled transport? What knowledge guided the precise balance of these immense slabs, often placed atop uneven terrain? Walking among the dolmens, one is immediately struck by their scale and arrangement. Some capstones measure over 5 meters in length, yet they are elevated several meters above the ground with almost impossible stability. The supporting stones are carefully placed to distribute weight evenly, and in many cases the dolmens are aligned along ridges or elevated areas, overlooking valleys and rivers. Could their placement reflect more than practical considerations? Might the builders have selected sites according to ritual, cosmological awareness, or even symbolic dominance over the surrounding landscape? And if so, how was such sophisticated spatial knowledge transmitted in a pre-literate society? The engineering behind the dolmens adds to the mystery. Moving and lifting stones of this magnitude without modern tools would have required ingenuity, labor coordination, and perhaps techniques that are now lost. Ropes, earthen ramps, timber levers, and sheer human effort have been proposed, yet experiments attempting to replicate these feats often fall short, revealing the difficulty of reconstructing ancient methods. Did these communities possess an understanding of leverage, fulcrum placement, and balance that surpasses conventional expectations for the period? Or were there tools and techniques, now forgotten, that enabled them to achieve such precision with apparent ease? Artifacts recovered from some dolmens provide tantalizing clues. Burials often contain bronze weapons, jewelry, and ceramic vessels, suggesting social hierarchy and ritual significance. Yet in many cases, the artifacts are secondary, added long after the stones were erected. This implies that the dolmens themselves may have had meaning independent of the human remains they occasionally housed. Could the structures have been designed to communicate power, mark sacred space, or serve as astronomical markers? Were the capstones, some weighing several tons, intentionally shaped or positioned to align with solstices, celestial events, or natural landmarks? And if so, what knowledge guided such precise and enduring integration of architecture, landscape, and sky? The landscape itself becomes part of the enigma. Ganghwa's dolmens are not scattered randomly. They cluster along ridgelines, terraces, and elevated plains, suggesting deliberate site selection. Some researchers note patterns that hint at ritual processions, line-of-sight alignments, or connections between dolmen groups across the island. Was the entire island conceived as a ceremonial landscape, with each dolmen functioning as a node within a larger spiritual or societal network? If so, how was knowledge of placement, alignment, and construction transmitted across generations and communities, and what cultural or symbolic frameworks guided these decisions? Speculative theories abound when faced with structures of this magnitude. Some scholars suggest that dolmens functioned as markers of power and territory, monumentalized expressions of social hierarchy. Others propose that their precision and alignment point to an understanding of astronomy and seasonal cycles, potentially encoding celestial knowledge in stone. Could these massive slabs, immovable and enduring, have served as both tombs and repositories of cultural memory, preserving not only the remains of the dead, but also the knowledge and values of the living? And if so, what else might lie hidden beneath or around them, clues to techniques, rituals, or systems of knowledge now lost? Even after decades of excavation and study, the dolmens of Ganghwa Island continue to defy complete explanation. How did Bronze Age communities achieve such feats of engineering without written plans, cranes, or modern tools? What knowledge of physics, balance, and leverage allowed these immense stones to be moved and positioned with such enduring stability? And perhaps most intriguingly, what intangible purposes, Ritual, symbolic, or astronomical guided every decision, from site selection to capstone placement, in ways that modern observers can only speculate upon. Each unanswered question amplifies the sense of awe, highlighting a civilization that combined practical skill with imagination and vision in ways still difficult to replicate. Walking among these ancient monuments today, one cannot help but be humbled by the scale and precision of human endeavor. Each dolmen seems to pulse with the memory of generations of labor, planning, and ritualized activity. They stand as both evidence of human ingenuity and as silent guardians of mysteries we may never fully decode. The Ganghwa Island dolmens, like Skara, Brae, Cahokia, and Priene before them, remind us that ancient societies were capable of extraordinary technical, social, and symbolic achievement. Yet, for all their permanence and precision, they also retain their secrets, guarding knowledge embedded in stone, balance, and landscape. As the sun casts long shadows over the rolling hills and coastal plains of Ganghwa, the dolmens exude a quiet majesty, commanding both respect and curiosity. They are monuments to human skill, endurance, and imagination, yet they also pose questions that remain unanswered. How much of their construction reflects lost techniques, now irrecoverable? What knowledge, social structures, or ritual purposes guided their placement and alignment? And what remains hidden beneath the stones or in the collective memory of the landscape, waiting to reveal insights into a civilization whose mastery challenges our understanding even today? The dolmens of Ganghwa Island invite us to contemplate human ingenuity in its most enduring form, the manipulation of immense, immovable stone to create structures that endure across millennia, silently transmitting meaning, intent, and mystery. They ask us to pause, observe, and wonder, not merely at what was built, but at how, why, and to what purpose. And in doing so, they connect us to a long line of extraordinary societies across time and space, each leaving behind traces of knowledge and craftsmanship that continue to defy replication and inspire awe. From the windswept fields and monumental stones of Ganghwa Island, our journey turns westward across the seas to the emerald landscapes of Ireland. Here, nestled on a gentle rise overlooking the River Liffey in the heart of County Dublin, lies the Mound of the Hostages, an ancient passage tomb at the center of the historic Hill of Tara. At first glance, it appears modest, a low, grassy mound easily overlooked amid the rolling landscape. Yet beneath its unassuming exterior lies a labyrinth of stone and earth, a silent witness to millennia of ritual, political power, and human ingenuity. Its simplicity belies the sophistication and mystery encoded within its structure, a subtle reminder that monumental significance is not always measured in scale alone. The Mound of the Hostages dates back to roughly 3,200 BCE, making it contemporary with some of Europe's most remarkable Neolithic tombs. Inside, a narrow passageway leads to a central chamber where sunlight from the winter solstice once penetrated with uncanny precision, illuminating the inner sanctum. This alignment demonstrates not only architectural skill, but a deep understanding of the celestial cycles. How did a prehistoric community, devoid of written records or advanced surveying tools, determine the precise angle of the sun and incorporate it into the design of a tomb? And what was the purpose of this alignment? Ritual, symbolic, or a deliberate record of astronomical knowledge? Walking around the mound today, the contours of the earth hint at subtle engineering choices. The passageway is constructed with carefully placed stones, supporting the weight of the earthen mound above, while the chamber itself suggests an awareness of structural integrity and longevity. Some stones are intricately carved with spirals, lozenges, and other abstract patterns whose meanings remain elusive. Were these designs purely decorative, or did they hold ritual significance, perhaps encoding cosmological beliefs, mythic narratives, or community memory? And if the carvings were symbolic, What messages were intended, and for whom? Those still living, or those who had passed into the tomb? Archaeological studies reveal the mound served multiple purposes over centuries. Human remains found inside include cremations and inhumations, sometimes accompanied by beads, tools, and other artifacts. Some scholars suggest the mound functioned as a burial site for important individuals, while others speculate that it also served as a ceremonial center for gatherings, inaugurations, or rites associated with kingship. The very name, Mound of the Hostages, evokes later traditions of political hostages, yet the true origin of the name is lost in the haze of history. Could the mound have been both a tomb and a center of social or political authority, a place where the sacred and the civic intertwined? The alignment of the passageway with the winter solstice sunrise is particularly striking. On a clear morning, sunlight travels along the narrow passage to illuminate the back wall of the chamber, a phenomenon achieved without modern instruments. How was such precision accomplished, and what knowledge of solar cycles and structural design allowed prehistoric builders to achieve this effect? Were there astronomical observations spanning generations that informed the placement of stones, the slope of the passage, and the orientation of the chamber? And if so, what broader cultural or spiritual significance might this phenomenon have held for those who built and used the tomb? The mound's landscape context adds layers of intrigue. Situated atop the hill of Tara, the mound commands a view of surrounding plains, rivers, and ridgelines. Its prominence suggests deliberate site selection, emphasizing visibility, accessibility, and perhaps spiritual or symbolic resonance. Did the builders intend for the mound to serve as a territorial marker, a ceremonial focus, or both? And how did its location relate to other structures across the hill and the broader landscape, forming a network of sites whose alignments and positions may have encoded knowledge or authority now lost to us? Artifacts and evidence from the tomb raise further questions. The presence of gold, stone tools, and beads indicates wealth, craftsmanship, and ritual activity, yet much about their precise use remains unknown. Some objects may have been offerings, while others were symbolic markers or tools used in ceremonies. What knowledge guided their creation, placement, and inclusion in the tomb? And what intangible purposes, spiritual, cosmological, or social, might these artifacts have served, preserved within the mound for generations to witness or interact with in ritualized ways? Speculative interpretations naturally emerge when faced with such enduring mysteries. Some researchers argue that the Mound of the Hostages functioned as a ritualized calendar, encoding knowledge of solar and lunar cycles in stone. Others suggest it was a center of political and ceremonial power, linking elite authority with spiritual legitimacy. Could it have served both functions simultaneously? A nexus where human ambition, celestial knowledge, and spiritual practice converged? And if so, how much of this understanding was deliberately encoded into the architecture, alignments, and placement of stones, leaving modern observers to decipher what remains hidden beneath centuries of grass and soil? Even with extensive study, the mound continues to defy full explanation. How were the builders able to combine structural integrity, precise alignment, and intricate symbolic design in a single construction? How did they transmit such technical and ritual knowledge across generations in a pre-literate society? And what might still lie hidden? Small artifacts, subtle carvings, or structural elements, waiting to reveal further insight into a civilization whose sophistication challenges our understanding of Neolithic Europe? Each unanswered question reinforces the mound's enigmatic presence, inviting observers to consider not just what it is, but what it represents: human ingenuity, cosmological awareness, and the capacity to shape both Earth and experience in ways that endure across millennia. Walking around the Mound of the Hostages, one is struck by the sense of continuity and purpose embedded in its design. The interplay of stone, earth, and light, combined with the surrounding landscape, conveys an intentionality that transcends practical construction. Like the dolmens of Ganghwa Island, Skara Brae, or Cahokia before it, the mound challenges assumptions about the capabilities of ancient societies and the sophistication of their knowledge. It is at once a functional tomb, a ceremonial stage, and a silent testament to human skill, observation, and foresight. Yet for all its precision and resilience, it guards its secrets jealously, leaving us to wonder at the knowledge, rituals, and intentions encoded in every stone. As the sun dips low over the Irish horizon, casting long shadows across the mound and the hill of Tara, the site exudes a quiet, enduring majesty. It is a place where human ambition, environmental awareness, and spiritual vision converge, and yet much remains unexplained. What guided the builders in their selection of site, orientation, and design? How much of their technical knowledge, ritual practice, or astronomical understanding has been lost to time? And what lies still hidden beneath layers of soil, grass, and centuries of history, preserving insights into a culture that, while long vanished, continues to challenge our understanding of what is possible? The Mound of the Hostages reminds us, as all the sites we have explored do, that human ingenuity often leaves traces far more enduring and enigmatic than we can fully comprehend. It invites reflection, curiosity, and wonder, encouraging us to question not only the capabilities of our ancestors, but also the mysteries that remain, patiently preserved within earth and stone. And in that quiet reflection, one cannot help but ask, what knowledge, what rituals, and what extraordinary understanding still lie waiting beneath the surface, ready to illuminate the ingenuity of a people who shaped history without leaving a full record of how it was done? From the gentle rise of the Mound of the Hostages in Ireland, where ancient light once illuminated chambers in perfect harmony with the winter solstice, our journey now turns eastward to the mist-laden landscapes of northern Europe. Here, in the forests and fields surrounding the small Czech town of Odry, lie the enigmatic Odry stone circles, silent monuments of megalithic design, their presence a reminder that prehistoric societies across Europe, though separated by geography, shared a fascination with stone, sky, and ritual. Walking among these standing stones today, one is immediately struck by their scale, alignment, and placement. Massive slabs, carefully arranged in circular formations, emerging from the earth with a quiet authority, as though the land itself had conspired with human hands to shape them. The Odry stone circles date back roughly 4,000 to 5,000 years, placing them in the late Neolithic to early Bronze Age. Scholars generally agree they were ceremonial sites, yet their precise function remains uncertain. Unlike tombs or dwellings, these circles lack evidence of domestic use. They were not intended for shelter, nor for storage. The stones themselves, some weighing several tons, are balanced with remarkable precision, forming patterns that have survived centuries of weathering and human activity. How were these stones transported from distant quarries, moved across uneven terrain, and positioned with such care, using only the tools available to societies long before the advent of wheeled carts, cranes, or pulleys? Approaching the circles, one cannot ignore the subtle geometries and alignments. Many of the stones are placed along axes that correspond, at least approximately, to solar and lunar events, the solstices, equinoxes, or lunar standstills. Could these alignments indicate an early understanding of celestial cycles integrated into the very fabric of the monument? Or were they primarily symbolic, intended to structure ritual practice, demarcate sacred space, or encode cultural knowledge in ways that we can now only speculate upon? The repetition of circles, the spacing of stones, and their careful orientation all suggest intention. Yet the purpose of that intention remains elusive. The engineering behind the circles is equally compelling. Many of the stones are massive, carefully shaped and firmly planted in the earth. Experiments with replica stones show that moving and positioning such megaliths would have required immense labor, ingenuity, and coordination. Could early societies have understood principles of leverage, counterbalance, and weight distribution in ways that we cannot fully replicate today? And if so, what methods were passed down through generations, encoded in oral tradition or ritual practice rather than written record? These questions remain unresolved, leaving the stones to silently testify to skills and knowledge lost to time. Artifacts and features associated with the circles offer tantalizing clues. Some stones bear cup marks, grooves, or carvings whose meaning remains uncertain. Were these marks symbolic, ritualistic, or functional? Did they represent a map, a calendar, or a record of communal events? In some cases, fragments of pottery or animal bones have been found nearby, hinting at offerings, ceremonial feasting, or ritualized activities. Yet there is no definitive pattern, and much remains speculative. What is clear is that these circles were more than mere markers. They were spaces of significance, places where humans engaged with stone, sky, and each other in ways that continue to challenge our understanding. The placement of the circles within the landscape is also intriguing. Many are sited on elevated ridges or near water sources, commanding views of the surrounding land. Some researchers suggest these locations allowed for the observation of celestial events, while others propose that proximity to natural features held symbolic meaning, connecting the circles to water, hills, or the horizon. Were these site selections practical, symbolic, or both? Did the builders perceive the landscape as part of the ritual, integrating the natural and the constructed in a deliberate and meaningful way? And if so, how much of this knowledge was technical, how much spiritual, and how much is now lost to time? Speculative interpretations naturally emerge when confronting the Odry stone circles. Some archaeologists propose they functioned as astronomical observatories, early calendars, or ceremonial gathering spaces. Others suggest they encoded social hierarchies, territorial claims, or spiritual cosmologies in stone. Could it be that these circles simultaneously served multiple purposes, functioning as both practical instruments and sacred monuments? And if so, how much of the precision, labor, and skill required to construct them reflects knowledge that is now beyond replication, lost with the societies that first shaped the land? Even after decades of study, the Odry circles remain enigmatic. How were massive stones lifted, moved, and aligned with such precision? What knowledge guided the selection of their sites, the geometry of their placement, and the carvings that adorn some surfaces? How did these early communities coordinate labor, plan construction, and transmit techniques across generations without written instruction? Each question deepens the sense of mystery, reminding us that human ingenuity often leaves traces that defy straightforward explanation. Walking among the circles today, one cannot help but feel a connection across time. The stones exude a quiet presence, commanding attention and respect, yet offering no easy answers. They are monuments to human ambition, knowledge, and ritual, enduring against centuries of weather, erosion, and human activity. Like the Mound of the Hostages, the Ganghwa Island Dolmens, or Skara Brae, the Odry stone circles invite contemplation, encouraging observers to consider not only what these structures are, but what they represent: human curiosity, observation, and the ability to shape the landscape in ways that resonate across millennia. As the sun dips low over the fields of northern Moravia, casting elongated shadows across the stones, the Odry circles exude a quiet majesty. They stand as both evidence and enigma, monumental in their simplicity yet sophisticated in execution. What guided the hands that placed each stone? What knowledge, ritual, or purpose determined their spacing, alignment, and orientation? And perhaps most intriguingly, what remains hidden? subtle markings, undisturbed earth, or traces of ritual practice, waiting to reveal insights into a civilization whose ingenuity challenges our modern assumptions about the limits of prehistoric skill. The Odry stone circles remind us that some monuments are designed to endure not only physically, but intellectually and spiritually, preserving questions as well as answers. They invite reflection, curiosity, and wonder, connecting us to human societies that, despite millennia of distance, left behind traces of profound understanding and extraordinary craftsmanship. And in contemplating these silent sentinels of stone, one is compelled to ask, how much knowledge, how much ritual, and how much ingenuity remains hidden, patiently preserved within the earth, awaiting the observant eye willing to consider the extraordinary capabilities of our distant ancestors? From the quiet stone circles of Odry, standing amid fields and mist, our journey now turns westward to the windswept coast of Brittany, France. Here, along the gentle undulations of the Morbihan Plain, stretches one of Europe's most astonishing and enigmatic prehistoric landscapes, the Carnac alignments. Rows upon rows of megaliths march across the countryside in precise linear formations, some extending for more than a kilometer, creating a pattern that has both fascinated and confounded researchers for centuries. Among these, the satellite alignments, smaller parallel arrays that orbit the main rows, offer a particularly compelling puzzle, hinting at an intentional design whose purpose remains elusive. The Carnac megaliths date to approximately 4,500 to 3,300 BCE, placing them squarely within the European Neolithic. The main alignments have been extensively studied, yet the satellite arrays, smaller clusters of stones arranged at seemingly deliberate offsets, continue to provoke questions. Why were these satellites placed where they are? Were they extensions of ritual space, markers of territorial divisions, or part of a complex astronomical scheme? The sheer number and precision of these stones suggest knowledge, coordination, and purpose far beyond what one might expect from a prehistoric community. How did Neolithic societies plan, transport, and erect these massive stones, some weighing tens of tons, without wheels or metal tools? Walking along the satellite alignments today, the sheer scale of human effort is immediately apparent. Stones are set in carefully measured distances, often aligned with the main rows and with nearby natural features. The repetition of spacing and orientation hints at a conscious system, yet the exact principles guiding this design remain mysterious. Were these arrangements purely symbolic, intended to reinforce the sanctity of the space? Or did they serve practical or astronomical functions, perhaps marking lunar cycles, solstices, or other celestial events? Could it be that these smaller satellite stones were part of a broader network of ritual or observational instruments, invisible to us without the context of a living culture that no longer exists? The construction of the satellites adds to the intrigue. Each stone had to be quarried, transported across uneven terrain, and positioned with extraordinary precision. Experiments in moving megaliths with Neolithic technology demonstrate the difficulty of such tasks, highlighting the organization, labor, and engineering skill required. Could these societies have developed techniques for leverage, counterbalance, and collective coordination that have now been lost to history? And if so, how did they convey this knowledge across generations, ensuring consistency in placement, orientation, and function over such expansive areas? Artifacts and associated features provide tantalizing hints, though evidence is limited. Some stones bear subtle markings, while nearby pits and smaller stones suggest ceremonial activity. The satellites appear deliberately offset from the main alignments, yet their spacing often mirrors patterns found elsewhere in Carnac, suggesting a coherent design principle. Could the satellite stones have functioned as markers for processions, Observational points or ritual participants? Or might they represent something more abstract, a codified system of knowledge or cosmology expressed through stone, visible only to those who understood its meaning? The surrounding landscape itself seems integrated into the design. The alignments traverse hills, valleys, and watercourses, interacting with natural contours in ways that suggest careful observation and adaptation. Could the Neolithic builders have intended the satellite arrays to interact with the sunrise or sunset, with lunar cycles or stellar events, creating moments of illumination, shadow, or alignment at specific times of the year? And if so, what cultural, spiritual, or practical knowledge might have informed such planning, preserved in stone for millennia? Speculative interpretations abound. Some archaeologists propose that the satellites served as ritual or ceremonial adjuncts to the main rows, forming pathways, boundaries, or staging areas for communal gatherings. Others suggest a more astronomical function, with stone positions encoding the movements of the sun, moon, or stars. Could the satellites, in combination with the main alignments, represent an early form of observational technology, allowing a prehistoric society to track time, seasons, or celestial cycles? And if so, what knowledge might have been preserved in these arrangements, lost with the collapse of the social and ritual systems that created them? Despite centuries of study, many questions remain. How did the Neolithic builders ensure precision in placement and alignment across such vast distances? How were massive stones transported, lifted, and set in a manner that has allowed them to survive for thousands of years? And most intriguingly, what was the purpose of the satellite arrays themselves? Why replicate, extend, and offset smaller stones around the main rows? Each unanswered question amplifies the sense of mystery, reinforcing the idea that these alignments encode knowledge, intent, or ritual practice that modern observers can appreciate in part, but perhaps never fully understand. Walking among the stones, one cannot ignore the quiet, commanding presence of the landscape. The satellites, like sentinels orbiting the main rows, seem to communicate with one another and with the natural horizon, forming patterns that hint at understanding far beyond mere aesthetics. The labor required, the precision achieved, and the integration with the surrounding land speak to a society that possessed not only technical skill, but also a vision of order, harmony, and continuity. And yet, the meaning remains elusive, allowing the stones themselves to tell a story that is both compelling and incomplete. As the afternoon sun casts long shadows over the rows, illuminating the subtle offsets of the satellite stones, Carnac exudes a quiet majesty, one that draws observers into contemplation. The satellite alignments, in their careful placement and deliberate orientation, remind us that human ingenuity often manifests in ways that endure long after the original culture has vanished. They challenge assumptions about prehistoric knowledge, labor organization, and architectural skill, offering evidence of a society capable of extraordinary achievement, yet leaving questions that remain unresolved. The Carnac satellites, like the Odry stone circles, the mound of the hostages, and Skara Brae before them, serve as both monuments and puzzles. They preserve knowledge, ritual, and skill, while guarding secrets in plain sight. How much of their precision reflects lost techniques now beyond replication? What knowledge guided their placement, alignment, and integration with the landscape? And what remains hidden, perhaps subtle markings, patterns, or features that could reveal the full scope of intent behind this extraordinary Neolithic achievement? As one stands amidst the silent stones, the wind whispering across the fields, it becomes clear that the Carnac satellite alignments are more than a testament to human effort. They are enduring enigmas, bridging the practical and the symbolic, the earthly and the celestial. They ask us to consider the sophistication of our distant ancestors, to marvel at their knowledge and foresight, and to accept that some mysteries may remain preserved in stone, challenging our understanding for generations yet to come. From the mist-draped fields of Brittany, where the Carnac satellite stones reach toward the horizon in silent, deliberate order, our journey now crosses the English Channel to the rolling landscapes of North Yorkshire, England. Here, amid fertile plains and the gentle contours of the River Ure, lies one of the most enigmatic Neolithic complexes in Britain, the Thornborough Henges. Stretching across more than 3 kilometers, this extraordinary arrangement of earthworks, ditches, and embanked circles has long been called Britain's Stonehenge in miniature, yet it possesses a character entirely its own, a subtlety, a precision, and a mysterious intent that continues to fascinate archaeologists, historians, and visitors alike. At first glance, the Thornborough Henges appear deceptively simple: 3 large circular enclosures aligned perfectly along a northeast to southwest axis. But simplicity gives way to wonder upon closer examination. The largest of the 3, often referred to as the Central Henge, measures over 240 meters in diameter, with ditches more than 10 meters wide and embankments rising several meters above the surrounding landscape. The precision of this alignment, combined with the scale of the earthworks, points to extraordinary planning, coordination, and understanding of geometry, all achieved without modern surveying tools or written records. How did Neolithic builders ensure such uniformity over 3 separate monuments? And why this precise, almost ceremonial arrangement across the plain? Walking along the perimeters today, the sophistication of the construction becomes evident. The ditches were dug with antler picks and wooden spades, laboriously removed, and their soil cast outward to form embankments of remarkable stability. The central henge contains internal pits and post holes, some of which may have supported timber structures, yet their exact purpose remains a mystery. Were these posts functional, markers, supports, or viewing platforms? Or were they symbolic, representing deities, celestial phenomena, or the presence of the ancestors? And if symbolic, what worldview guided their design, placement, and repetition across 3 monumental enclosures? The alignment of the henges along a near-perfect axis raises further questions. Some researchers propose that Thornborough functioned as a calendar or observatory, marking the rising and setting points of the sun during solstices and equinoxes. Others suggest it reflected cosmological or spiritual symbolism, embodying the cycles of life, death, and renewal. Could the positioning of the 3 henges, each in relation to the others, have encoded knowledge of astronomical events, watercourses, or sacred topography? And if so, what does this reveal about the sophistication and priorities of the communities that conceived them? The Thornborough complex is not isolated in the landscape. It exists within a network of Neolithic monuments, barrows, and ceremonial routes. The spatial relationship between the henges and other features implies deliberate planning at a regional scale. Did the builders envision the landscape as a sacred canvas, mapping ritual, governance, or social hierarchy onto the very earth? Were the henges gathering points, ceremonial centers, or markers of territorial influence? Or perhaps they fulfilled multiple roles simultaneously, combining practical, spiritual, and social functions in a single monumental design? Artifacts found within the henges deepen the mystery. Flint tools, carved stones, and remnants of pottery have been unearthed, hinting at ceremonial activity, feasting, and deposition rituals. Yet despite extensive excavation, no definitive evidence explains the precise function of the henges. The scale and coordination of labor required for their construction far exceed what might be expected of a small, local community. Could this imply a level of social organization, cooperation, and technical knowledge that has left little trace in the archaeological record? And if so, what knowledge or skills were transmitted through oral tradition, ritual practice, or observation? enabling successive generations to reproduce and maintain such monumental constructions. Speculative interpretations arise naturally from these observations. Some scholars suggest Thornborough was a ceremonial hub, a pilgrimage destination or assembly site for multiple communities. Others emphasize its potential as an astronomical observatory, a tool for tracking solar and lunar cycles, or marking seasonal events crucial to agriculture and ritual. Could the precise repetition of circular forms and the careful alignment across 3 kilometers reflect an underlying knowledge system, a prehistoric philosophy that integrated landscape, celestial observation, and social structure? And if so, what knowledge, now lost, guided the builders in ways we can only begin to imagine? Even after decades of research, Thornborough remains elusive. How did Neolithic communities coordinate the excavation of massive ditches and embankments with such precision? What knowledge guided the choice of sites, dimensions, and spacing of the enclosures? And what intangible purposes, ritual, symbolic, or astronomical, are encoded in their geometry and placement? Each unanswered question underscores the complexity and sophistication of the people who shaped this landscape, and the challenge of fully grasping their intentions. Walking among the henges today, one senses the deliberate interaction of human ambition, labor, and the natural environment. The embankments, ditches, and post holes convey order, permanence, and intention. Like the Carnac satellites or the Odry stone circles, Thornborough embodies both technical mastery and symbolic resonance. It demonstrates an ability to manipulate the landscape on a monumental scale while embedding meaning, structure, and perhaps even cosmological insight within the arrangement of earth, stone, and space. And yet, for all its precision and monumentality, the henges keep their secrets, offering evidence without full explanation, inviting contemplation without providing answers. As the sun moves across the wide Yorkshire sky, casting shadows into the ditches and illuminating the embankments, the Thornborough henges exude a quiet majesty. They are both enduring and enigmatic, monuments to human ingenuity, foresight, and social coordination, and yet repositories of mysteries that continue to challenge our understanding. How much of the knowledge required for their construction has been lost? What guided the selection of sites, the geometry of the enclosures, and the alignment across the landscape? And what remains hidden beneath the earth in subtle features or deposits that could shed further light on the people who undertook this monumental task? The Thornborough henges, like the Carnac satellites, Odry stone circles, and the mound of the hostages before them, invite reflection, curiosity, and wonder. They demonstrate that prehistoric communities were capable of extraordinary technical achievement, yet left behind traces that resist full comprehension. They challenge modern assumptions about the limits of Neolithic knowledge and skill, reminding us that human ingenuity can produce works of enduring complexity, mystery, and beauty. And in the quiet contemplation of these earthworks, one is compelled to ask, what knowledge, what purpose, and what extraordinary understanding remains hidden within the landscape, patiently preserved in stone and soil for those willing to observe, question, and wonder? From the rolling plains and meticulously crafted earthworks of Thornborough, our journey now carries us across the Atlantic and far into the arid landscapes of the American Southwest. Here, amid the canyons, mesas, and scrubland of northwestern New Mexico, lies one of North America's most enigmatic prehistoric centers, Chaco Canyon. Spanning nearly 25,000 square miles of the Chacoan cultural landscape, the canyon cradles monumental architecture, vast ceremonial complexes, and roads stretching into the desert, forming a network whose scale and sophistication continue to challenge archaeologists, historians, and visitors alike. Walking through the canyon today, one is immediately struck by the sense of deliberate design, the careful orientation of buildings, the precision of masonry, and the subtle integration with the surrounding landscape. The heart of Chaco is composed of massive great houses, stone and timber structures, some rising 4 or 5 stories, containing hundreds of rooms, kivas, and ceremonial spaces. The largest, Pueblo Bonito, contains over 650 rooms, with walls built from carefully shaped sandstone blocks, bound with mortar so precise that some joints appear seamless even millennia later. How did the ancestral Puebloans move and shape such vast quantities of stone with primitive tools? How did they coordinate labor across generations, ensuring uniformity and structural integrity in buildings that rival the scale of European megalithic complexes? These questions echo across the canyon, amplified by the knowledge that these constructions were built without iron, wheeled vehicles, or draft animals. Beyond their scale, the alignment of the Chacoan great houses is equally remarkable. Many structures are oriented to solar, lunar, and stellar events. Sunlight illuminates specific rooms during solstices, while the placement of certain walls corresponds with the cycles of the moon or the position of key stars. Could these architectural decisions have functioned as observatories, calendars, or ritual markers, allowing the Chacans to track celestial events with astonishing precision? And if so, what knowledge systems informed this integration of architecture and astronomy, and how was that knowledge preserved and transmitted in a culture without written records? The canyon itself was more than a backdrop. It was integral to the vision of its builders. Roads, some up to 30 feet wide and extending for miles across the desert, connect great houses with outlying communities and ceremonial sites. Their straightness, precise grading, and construction defy simple explanation. What purpose did these roads serve? Were they practical, enabling trade and communication, or ceremonial, guiding processions and pilgrims across the landscape? Could they have been symbolic, linking sacred spaces in a network that encoded social, political, or cosmological principles into the very geography? Kivas, circular, subterranean ceremonial chambers, offer additional insight, yet deepen the mystery. Found within great houses and as isolated structures, kivas were centers of ritual, social gathering, and possibly governance. Some contain carefully constructed venting systems, sunken benches, and precisely aligned features. Were these design choices purely functional, or were they informed by spiritual or astronomical principles? And how did the builders ensure consistency across the canyon, creating hundreds of kivas over centuries with features so remarkably uniform? Artifacts recovered from Chaco, including pottery, turquoise, shells, and tools, indicate long-distance trade and a complex social economy. Materials from the Pacific coast, the Great Plains, and the deserts of northern Mexico all converge here, suggesting a network of exchange and cultural interaction on a scale unprecedented for the time. How were these trade networks organized, and how did they integrate with the ceremonial and political functions of the great houses? Could Chaco have been both a spiritual hub and a center of economic and social coordination, a place where the sacred and the practical intertwined in ways that remain largely invisible to us today? Speculative interpretations naturally arise when considering Chaco Canyon. Some scholars argue it was the heart of a regional religious movement, drawing people from hundreds of miles to participate in rituals aligned with celestial events. Others emphasize its political significance, a ceremonial capital reinforcing the authority of elite families or clans. Could Chaco have been simultaneously a cultural, spiritual, and administrative center, an early city in all but name, whose social and technical achievements are encoded in stone and landscape? And if so, what knowledge, engineering, astronomy, ritual, social organization allowed this vision to be realized with such enduring precision? Even after decades of excavation, study, and analysis, Chaco continues to elude complete explanation. How were massive timber beams transported over miles of desert? How were stone walls built with such precision, enduring centuries of erosion and seismic activity? And what was the true purpose of the canyon's layout, from great houses to kivas to roads stretching into the horizon? Each question amplifies the sense of awe, revealing a civilization capable of achievements that challenge our understanding of prehistoric skill and planning. Walking through Chaco today, the canyon's quiet majesty impresses itself on the senses. Sunlight glances off carefully cut sandstone, shadows stretch across meticulously planned plazas, and the alignment of rooms and walls hints at knowledge of the heavens. Like Thornborough, Carnac, or Odry before it, Chaco reveals human ingenuity manifest in ways that endure across millennia, preserving evidence of technical mastery, social organization, and spiritual vision. Yet, for all its grandeur and sophistication, the canyon keeps many secrets, offering glimpses of understanding without revealing the full depth of its original design. As the sun dips toward the western horizon, illuminating the canyon walls in a wash of gold and shadow, one cannot help but sense the intentionality embedded in the landscape. Chaco is more than a collection of buildings. It is a statement of vision, coordination, and knowledge, preserved in stone, timber, and earth. What knowledge guided the placement of great houses, the alignment of kivas, and the construction of roads spanning miles of desert? How were such monumental projects coordinated across time, space, and generations? And what remains undiscovered, hidden beneath the canyon floor or encoded in the subtle alignments that could illuminate the full ingenuity of the people who built this extraordinary cultural landscape? Chaco Canyon, like the Thornborough Henges, Carnac satellites, and the Odry stone circles before it, invites reflection, curiosity, and wonder. It demonstrates that human societies, even without modern tools or written language, were capable of extraordinary achievement, an integration of labor, observation, social coordination, and spiritual vision that resonates across millennia. And in standing among its silent stone walls, one is compelled to consider not only what was accomplished, but what knowledge, skill, and purpose remain hidden, waiting for the patient eye willing to observe, question, and imagine. From the sun-baked mesas and precise alignments of Chaco Canyon, our journey now carries us northward, across continents and climates, to the rugged mountains of the North Caucasus in Russia. Here, amid steep slopes, narrow valleys, and windswept plateaus, stand some of the world's most enigmatic megalithic monuments, the dolmens of the North Caucasus. Scattered across this dramatic landscape, these stone constructions rise in solitary grandeur or in small clusters, their massive slabs forming chambers and corridors whose original purpose has long puzzled archaeologists, historians, and visitors alike. Approaching them, one is struck first by their scale. Some stones weigh multiple tons, and then by their precision, the careful arrangement of massive blocks suggesting an understanding of construction that seems astonishing for a prehistoric society. The North Caucasus dolmens date roughly to the 4th and 3rd millennia BCE, placing them among the oldest monumental constructions in Eurasia. Built primarily of local stone, their architecture is surprisingly sophisticated. Rectangular or trapezoidal chambers, sometimes topped with corbelled roofs or massive capstones, reveal an understanding of weight distribution and structural integrity that rivals other prehistoric complexes around the globe. How were these enormous stones quarried, transported, and positioned on uneven mountainous terrain using only human strength and rudimentary tools? And what knowledge guided the builders to create structures that have resisted earthquakes, erosion, and centuries of exposure? The layout of the dolmens adds another layer of intrigue. Unlike the linear arrangements of Carnac or the ceremonial clusters of Chaco, the North Caucasus dolmens are often isolated or loosely grouped, their orientation frequently aligned with natural features such as ridgelines, rivers, or distant peaks. Some researchers have noted potential astronomical alignments with entrances or corridors oriented toward solstitial sunrise or sunset points. Could these alignments indicate ritual significance, astronomical observation, or a complex symbolic relationship with the landscape? And if so, what cultural or spiritual framework informed these choices, preserved in stone rather than written word? Entering a dolmen, one immediately senses its intended purpose. Narrow passages lead to enclosed chambers, some scarcely wide enough to enter, others surprisingly spacious. Archaeological excavations reveal traces of human remains, pottery, tools, and sometimes enigmatic carvings. Many scholars interpret the dolmens as burial or ritual sites, yet their scale, effort, and placement suggest that they were more than mere tombs. Could these structures have been multifunctional, serving simultaneously as burial chambers, ceremonial centers, astronomical markers, or symbols of territorial claims? And what social or religious knowledge was required to coordinate labor, quarry massive stones, and design chambers with such precision? The construction techniques themselves are remarkable. Capstones weighing several tons were lifted and placed atop vertical supports with no evidence of levers or pulleys as we know them today. Walls are often carefully fitted with minimal gaps between stones, and some chambers exhibit corbelled roofing or stone lintels that hint at an understanding of compression and balance. Could it be that the builders of the North Caucasus dolmens possessed technical knowledge now lost to time? A combination of empirical observation, practical engineering, and ritual instruction? And if so, how was this knowledge transmitted across generations without the benefit of written language or formalized training? Artifacts recovered from the dolmens are both tantalizing and frustratingly inconclusive. Human remains, occasionally accompanied by grave goods such as ceramics, stone tools, and metal ornaments, suggest ceremonial and funerary activity. Yet patterns are inconsistent, and many dolmens show no trace of human remains at all. Some stones bear subtle carvings or cup marks whose meaning remains uncertain. Were these symbols ritualistic, territorial, astronomical, or purely decorative? Could they encode a system of knowledge, belief, or memory that has now been lost to history? The dolmens, in their silent presence, offer no explanation, only the compelling testimony of human labor and intent. The location of the dolmens in the mountainous terrain further complicates understanding. Constructed in places that are difficult to access even today, the effort required to transport massive stones up steep slopes, across uneven ground, and into carefully prepared chambers suggests a social organization and communal effort of remarkable sophistication. How were these communities structured? What motivated the mobilization of labor across difficult terrain for monuments whose function remains only partially understood? And what does this reveal about the interplay of ritual, social hierarchy, and practical skill in these prehistoric societies? Speculative interpretations naturally arise. Some suggest that the dolmens functioned primarily as burial sites for elite individuals or spiritual leaders. Others propose that the dolmens were markers of sacred geography, serving as focal points for rituals, territorial delineation, or astronomical observation. Could these interpretations coexist, with each dolmen fulfilling multiple roles in the spiritual, social, and political lives of the communities that built them? And if so, what underlying system of knowledge, technological, astronomical, and ceremonial, made such multifunctional structures possible? Even with centuries of research, the North Caucasus dolmens continue to defy easy explanation. How did early societies manage the logistics of quarrying, moving, and erecting massive stones? What social, spiritual, or technical knowledge informed their placement, orientation, and construction? and what is encoded in the subtle features, alignments, and marks left on the stones that modern observers have yet to fully decipher. Each unanswered question underscores the sophistication of these societies, whose achievements are tangible, yet whose understanding is partially lost to time. Walking among these monuments today, one is struck by the quiet, imposing presence of the stones. They rise from the earth with a sense of permanence, both a testament to human ingenuity and a silent keeper of mysteries. Like Chaco Canyon, Thornborough Henges, and the Carnac satellites, the North Caucasus dolmens invite reflection and wonder. They challenge modern assumptions about the technical skill, social coordination, and cosmological understanding of prehistoric societies. And in contemplating these ancient structures, one is compelled to ask how much knowledge, skill, and ritual has been preserved in stone, and how much remains hidden, encoded in the landscape, the alignments, and the subtle marks on the stones themselves, awaiting the careful observer who seeks to uncover the extraordinary abilities of a civilization long gone. In the shadow of the Caucasus Mountains, as the wind stirs the grass and the sun casts long shadows across the dolmens, the sense of mystery deepens. The stones are silent, monumental, and yet eloquent. They speak of human effort, intention, and vision that survives millennia. And as one reflects on their presence, the mind cannot help but wander to the questions that remain unanswered. What guided the hands that built them? What knowledge allowed their creation? And what remains hidden, patiently waiting to reveal itself to those willing to look, to wonder, and to imagine the extraordinary capabilities of our ancient ancestors? From the windswept plains and mountain dolmens of the North Caucasus, our journey now leads us across the Mediterranean to the rugged, sun-scorched island of Sardinia, Italy. Here, on the northern coast near Sassari, rises one of Europe's most enigmatic prehistoric monuments, the megalithic sanctuary of Monte da Codi. At first glance, the structure is immediately striking, an elevated platform built from massive blocks of limestone, ascending in a step pyramid form that evokes both grandeur and mystery. It is often referred to as Europe's ziggurat, a title that hints at its architectural uniqueness. Yet Monte da Codi is unlike any other Neolithic construction on the continent, a singular expression of monumental intent whose original purpose remains elusive. Monte da Codi dates to roughly 4,000 to 3,500 BCE, placing it in the late Neolithic, a time when communities across the Mediterranean were experimenting with monumental architecture, ritual spaces, and social organization. The sanctuary consists of a raised platform, approximately 30 by 20 meters, built with carefully placed limestone blocks, and topped with a smaller altar-like structure. Surrounding the platform, archaeologists have identified traces of additional ceremonial features, including smaller altars, enclosures, and possibly ritual pathways. The precision and scale of the construction immediately suggest extraordinary planning, coordination, and labor investment. How did these communities, with limited tools and no wheeled vehicles, manage to quarry, transport, and erect such enormous blocks? And what knowledge guided their placement in a way that would endure millennia? The step-like design of Monte da Codi invites speculation. Some researchers interpret it as a ceremonial platform for offerings, processions, or astronomical observation. Its raised surface could have provided a vantage point over the surrounding landscape, allowing participants to witness ritual activity or to observe celestial phenomena. Could this elevated position have functioned as a stage for interaction with the heavens, the sun, or the moon, integrating ritual with observation in ways that have now been obscured by time? And if so, what knowledge, astronomical, spiritual, and technical, guided the careful selection of angles, proportions, and orientation? Archaeological evidence adds to the intrigue. Excavations have revealed traces of animal sacrifices, burnt offerings, and ritual deposits, indicating that Monte de Codi was a focal point of ceremonial life. Yet the meaning of these rituals remains uncertain. Were they offerings to deities, ancestral veneration, or part of agricultural or seasonal ceremonies? And why construct a monument of such scale and permanence for these purposes? The combination of labor, material, and architectural knowledge suggests a society capable of complex organization, one that could marshal resources, coordinate specialized labor, and embed symbolic meaning into its landscape. The platform itself is more than a simple altar. Its geometric precision, the straight lines, right angles, and careful alignment with nearby topographical features indicates a sophisticated understanding of spatial planning. Could the structure encode knowledge of measurement, geometry, or cosmology? Some researchers have suggested that Monte de Codi may have been aligned with solar or lunar events, though the evidence is not definitive. Could the step pyramid have functioned as a marker for solstices or equinoxes, a tangible calendar etched in stone, visible across the surrounding plains? And if so, how was this knowledge developed, shared, and preserved in a culture without writing or formalized mathematical tools? The uniqueness of Monte de Codi makes comparison difficult, yet its parallels with distant monumental traditions raise further questions. Its resemblance to ziggurats of Mesopotamia, though purely superficial in design, prompts speculation about the universality of human ingenuity. Did separate societies arrive independently at similar architectural solutions for ceremonial and astronomical purposes? Or might there have been indirect cultural influences through trade networks, migration, or shared ideas connecting distant Neolithic communities across the Mediterranean and Near East? The sheer labor required to construct the sanctuary challenges modern understanding. Limestone blocks, some weighing several tons, were transported from quarries located hundreds of meters away, lifted into position, and aligned with precision that has preserved the monument's integrity for more than 5 millennia. How did these builders achieve such feats without metal tools, draft animals, or advanced mechanical systems? Were there now lost techniques of leverage, organization, and communal labor that allowed these societies to accomplish what seems, even today, almost impossible to replicate? And what does this imply about the social, spiritual, and technological sophistication of the Neolithic Sardinians? Speculation naturally extends to the sanctuary's function within the broader landscape. Monte de Codi sits near other megalithic structures, ritual enclosures, and settlements, suggesting its role as a central node in a complex social and ceremonial network. Did the sanctuary serve as a meeting place for dispersed communities, a locus for ritual observance, or a marker of territorial control? Could the elevated platform have symbolized a bridge between earth and sky, a deliberate attempt to manifest cosmic principles in stone and labor? And if so, what cultural or spiritual worldview shaped this unique architectural expression? Even after decades of study, Monte de Codi retains its secrets. How was its construction coordinated and executed with such precision? What knowledge informed the alignment, design, and placement of blocks? And what subtle features, now eroded or hidden, might reveal additional layers of purpose, symbolism, or ritual practice? Each unanswered question deepens the sense of mystery, offering a monument that is at once tangible, monumental, and yet fundamentally elusive in its meaning. Standing at the base of Monte de Codi today, one is struck by the monument's silent authority. The blocks rise in measured tiers, commanding attention while inviting contemplation. The sanctuary embodies a deliberate integration of labor, vision, and landscape, reflecting a society capable of extraordinary technical skill and profound ritual insight. Like the dolmens of the North Caucasus, Chaco Canyon, and the Carnac satellites before it, Monte de Codi presents evidence of human ingenuity that transcends the limits we often assume for prehistoric communities. And yet, For all its durability and precision, it offers no definitive answers, only questions, hypotheses, and the enduring sense of awe inspired by a people who transformed stone into both monument and mystery. As the Sardinian sun arcs across the sky, illuminating the sanctuary's tiers and casting long shadows across the surrounding plain, Monte Dakoti exudes a quiet majesty. It is a place where human effort meets cosmic imagination, where the Neolithic mind conceived a space that endures across millennia. And in the lingering silence of the platform, one cannot help but ask, what knowledge guided the hands that shaped these stones? What rituals, beliefs, or astronomical observations were embedded in its design? And what still lies hidden beneath its surface, in its alignment, or in the memory of the landscape, that might reveal the full extent of the ingenuity behind this extraordinary megalithic sanctuary?